Hey guys, I know you're expecting us to start singing already, but we have a little bit of business to take care of first. That means we're talking about our Patreon!
Patreon!
Here's the singing,
See?
all right.
Yeah,
I
okay,
sing.
great. Well, thank you so much for all the pledges that you have given us so far. It has exceeded our expectations like crazy.
So crazy. I don't even get it. Oh my god.
It's just so nice to see that you guys appreciate this podcast and want to support it. It's just the most happy-making thing.
With every day, we're inching closer and closer to our next goal. It is our equipment goal, and we sure need it real fast, guys.
Oh my god, you guys, our cables are just like falling apart.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is like a necessary goal, actually.
But beyond that, we have so much more planned ahead for you guys. It's so exciting. We can't wait to fully get into this.
Yeah, and start doing the 3 goals that we've made already.
Yes.
Holy shit.
Yeah, we are gonna be mini-soding like mofos.
Gonna watch some Hercules.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so go check out the Patreon, www.patreon.com/Xena Warrior Podcast. There's links to it all over our main website, where you can see all of our goals and then all of the different rewards and stuff you can get if you decide to become a patron. Really fun, and we're just really just so blown away and thankful. So yeah.
And now, enjoy
A bittersweet.
the bittersweet.
That's like all the singing you're gonna get. Okay.
Hello and welcome to Xena Warrior Podcast. My name is Vera and I am joined as always by my 2 melodious co-hosts, Katie
Hello.
and Livy.
Hello!
Oh, we didn't even get 30
Yeah.
seconds in.
I'm actually gonna do the whole thing singing. No, I won't.
Can you imagine if we did this entire podcast in song and rhyme?
Oh, wow.
Maybe not even song, but just rhyme.
That would be so annoying.
We worked 6 months to prepare this podcast like Joss Whedon worked on the Buffy musical.
What rhymes with Joss Whedon?
Genius.
Oh!
Oh. What? What does?
No, it was a rhetorical
Oh, I
question.
thought you had some kind of comment to make about
No.
a big topic in this episode.
I didn't actually compose a rhyme
Okay.
about Joss Whedon.
All right.
Well, this is a podcast about Xena and specifically,
Whoa.
specifically about episode 312, The Bittersweet.
Oh my
The
goodness.
bitter and sweet of it.
All in the lips that you kiss.
This is a very special episode of Xena. It is a sing and dance number, the whole thing.
It's also the conclusion to the rift. Sort of.
Sort of.
The first of many conclusions to the rift.
This is a big old therapy sesh, the
It
episode.
is. It really is.
Yeah.
In fact, I wish all therapy sessions kind of went like this. Callisto kisses you, you meet a dog, you get naked. It's good times.
Shall we talk about this?
I think we should.
Or should we sing about it?
I'm sure some singing will happen as we go.
I don't know.
Before we get down to it, should we talk about musicals in general?
Yeah.
Do we like musicals, this table?
I do.
Yeah, what about this end of the table?
Vera and I are a little more apathetic to musicals, so you'll have to forgive us, listeners. We're going to
Yeah.
be the cynics here in the corner.
We love this episode.
We love this
Don't
episode.
get
And
us
in fact,
wrong.
we love plenty of things
Yeah.
that are musicals.
I'm just going to say, for me personally, musical theater is not my favorite. And I don't know much of it. I've only seen a few things. Yeah.
Would you say you like musical episodes of television?
The,
No, a
few
difference.
that I've seen, I liked the Buffy musical. I liked this.
You
Sure.
like Fringe, the Fringe musical?
Oh, I like the Fringe musical, yeah. But see, the thing is, for me, it's not because, of the music. It's because I like the show, and the people I like watching in the show are in this episode, and it is an episode that is a musical. And I like it. That's generally how I roll. What about you, Liv?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm similar to you in that I don't get excited about these things because of the music. And in fact, I'm infamous for being very bad at listening to music, which is funny considering how often I love to sing it on here. But I don't really hear lyrics. Like, it's hard for me to actually understand what songs are about a lot of the time. So it's more, I mean, maybe that makes me a much more like pure music listener because it's just the sound. So for me, Bittersweet is so successful because, you know, just hearing like the pain in their voices and then kind of the relief and love at the end is so powerful that I'm not sitting there going, wait, what word did she use there?
Yeah.
Which is very different from how I am as a regular viewer of movies and TV, where I'm very literal. Like, I'm always like trying to pay attention to the words and the meaning. So in some ways it's kind of cool to have a musical that like short circuits that part of my brain that's doing that. So I just have to like feel. That feels very much, as you're saying, Vera, it's about like a therapy session. It's like, let's get past like words. Words can deceive you.
Yeah.
Go right to the feelings.
Well, it's more cathartic than music.
Yeah, and Katie, you love this genre.
I love musicals. Yeah.
So you loved this episode?
I love this
extra.
episode. Yeah. I love it extra. Yeah.
What musicals do you love?
Theater, my favorites. Cabaret.
Yes.
Sweeney Todd. Any Sondheim, really. We could be here all day.
What about TV musicals?
There are two really good ones.
It's funny how this keeps coming up. There are but two.
I honestly, and we'll go into this because I feel like this is our area that we should really like address because of the two big ones. That for something really ubiquitous like music on television and performing on television, which has been around since the dawn of television, and the sheer number of television shows that have done musical episodes, which is a lot, there are very, very, very few that are actually doing original musicals that are humongously in service of the plot, I think. A lot of them just kind of exist to be special and to be like a stunt.
Fun. Like, let's see everybody sing and dance.
Exactly.
You know, we'll come up with a justification for it, but it won't be like the resolution of a 6-episode arc or the kickoff of a season-long arc.
Right.
Yeah. Mostly it's like they have somebody in the cast who is famously like some kind of Broadway person.
Mandy
or
Patinkin.
Or Sarah Ramirez, you know, something like that. And they're like, let's give you an episode where you can show us those pipes, you know? Yeah, it's kind of like stunty, but in a fun way. Like, so many people in Hollywood have singing backgrounds that you just don't know of. And it's like, they come out. I mean, we just had, like, obviously, Flash and Supergirl did that musical just now.
I thought that was a very successful one. A bit like Brown Betty in terms of it being, you know, the music wasn't exactly the centerpiece of it. It was almost more about the kind of the atmosphere, the noir. But it had original stuff that was really memorable. And everybody was really committed.
And they were a little bit more, the Supergirl ones, like a little more in line with kind of an older version where, you know, it's a genre show already, so you can have these fun explanations for why it's happening, but it's still like music that's in the show itself, and it's not just like people busting in the song, which is a totally different experience.
Yeah, that for the most part it was a little vaudeville, right? They were performing a lot of the songs.
Yeah.
Which is generally the history of musicals
I mean,
on
like,
television.
I feel like let's situate Xena and the Bittersweet in a history of TV musicals, right? Because, you know, we like to do a lot of Xena did it firstness on here, and I think
it did.
And it did.
It did. Xena did it first. Xena did it first.
And I think that I feel like I can fairly confidently, safely say that in terms of like the scale and grandeur of this episode and what it's doing plot wise and for the characters. Yeah. But it certainly wasn't the first, and it like there's tons of things beforehand.
Yeah, let's talk about some of those predecessors briefly.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, the earliest days of TV, a lot of it was just live musicals, and like we've swung back to that now.
Fate is a wheel.
And it's, you do have a lot of shows like starting with, your I Love Lucy's and things like that where, they have special episodes that are music based that
and Ricky runs a nightclub.
Well, yeah, but
music.
these are even like outside of like Lucy wanting to be in the show. No, this is like they have like other episodes where she like dreams that she's going to Scotland or whatever, and there's all these like songs, and like a lot of it is still based on like, okay, they're on stage and performing like vaudevillian, as you said. You move along through time and you have stuff that is like, Gilligan's Island did one where they put on Hamlet as a musical.
So insane.
But again, it's still they're performing something they wrote. You have shows that have music in it because people are in bands. You have the Brady Bunch, right?
Yeah.
They sing. So stuff like that. And then you kind of get to TV getting a little more experimental. What you have like Singing Detective in Britain, which was a miniseries. And actually, I did find out that it was kind of influential for Stephen Bochco's famous 1990 television series Cop Rock, which I really hope people are familiar with.
Oh my god. I can't believe it ever existed. It sounds like a joke. It sounds like some kind of urban legend.
Because it's Stephen Bochco.
Yeah.
Like, that's the weird part of it.
That's as good as Terrence Winter writing for Zena.
Yes, you're right. That's exactly that.
Oh, well.
Sorry.
Listen, Terrence Winter can just be, like, glad he wrote for Zena.
Yeah,
like, come on.
He should be glad.
If you're not familiar with Cop Rock, it's a musical that was basically, like, Stephen Bochco did, like, Hill Street Blues, right? NYPD Blue. Yeah. And then this was like that, except for that the cops then just like burst into song. So like a real musical, a real attempt at doing a television musical. Throughout like I think the 80s and 90s, you'd have a lot of animated musicals.
And my favorite, of course, was The Simpsons.
Mm-hmm.
I particularly love the monorail song. And also the one that's about the brothel where they sing "We Put the Spring in Springfield." That's a good song.
Risque.
But I think the one that's most famous out of The Simpsons is the Mary Poppins parody, which had multiple songs.
Yeah, an original for the show.
Yeah.
And I think that the proliferation of them in animation it's much easier, of course. I'm not saying that animation is easy, but then
you don't need to train anyone in dance.
Yeah, these like very large scale productions that we know for live action TV, I feel like are going to be a little bit more difficult.
And animation tends to rely more on music, I think. So you tend to have composers probably doing a lot of original score.
Yeah.
Also, in the 80s and 90s, that's the Disney Renaissance.
Yeah.
So you have these major movies that are like, giant Oscar buzzy movies that were musicals.
Yeah, that's totally true. Obviously, like movie musicals were big, but then kind of went out with the 70s and 80s, and then didn't come back really until after this. A couple years.
Chicago.
Yeah. Your Moulin Rouge is 2 years later. 2 or 3 years later. Anyway, so I feel like right before Xena, there were maybe 2 live-action TV musicals or shows that had original songs with singing that can get a little shout-out. One is Northern Exposure in 1993. Had a episode where a character who was pregnant burst into song, like woke up one day and couldn't talk but could sing everything. It's very weird.
That sounds fascinating.
It is on Daily
Motion. Did they say that it was like because of her pregnancy or something?
Yeah, maybe like anxieties and like working through some stuff. It was very odd. She's married to someone 40 years older than her. Don't know what was going on in Alaska. I've never seen Northern Exposure except for this.
This is making me kind of want to.
Their DVDs were always awesome because they came out like as if they were wrapped in a parka. Like, yeah, you've seen those.
I've seen those. Yeah, you just want to squish them.
Mm-hmm.
That's very nice.
Our next podcast is going to be about Northern Exposure.
Oh my gosh.
So obviously, like, using music not as like a song in the show, but like driving this character's plot.
It's expressing something about the character.
Right. And then in the fall of 1997, when The Bittersweet was in production, Chicago Hope aired a musical called Brain Salad Surgery. Chicago Hope, if you don't know it, it's basically like Chicago Hope and ER came out at the same time. It's like a medical drama.
Yeah, they're
And-
rivals.
So this one...
Bitter rivals. They both took place in Chicago, even.
Yeah.
This one had a character, Adam Arkin's character, like has a brain aneurysm and ends up in this, dreamscape. And it's a jukebox musical, so it's using songs that already exist, not songs written for the show to tell the story.
And many of them are lip synced.
Yeah.
What I saw of it.
I think so, yeah. But it's visually pretty interesting, much more so than I thought. Kind of odd. Certainly, I feel like I can't really speak with 100% accuracy to this, but it certainly feels like it would be an outlier among episodes of Chicago Hope. Like, it probably did not feel like any other episode that came before it.
Yeah.
And
I like that it's connecting this idea of musical with surrealism, which I'm not sure any of the previous examples really did.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, it's obvious. If your characters are suddenly breaking out into song in a show where that never happens, you're like, what's going on? This is a dream. But I think to take that even further and be like, not only is this a dream, it's a hallucinogenic dream. And there's, roller skating, girls in elevators, and everything is very dreamlike. So I do see a pretty straight through line from what Chicago Hope was doing just a few months before Xena. Exactly. Something was in the water in 1996.
Chicago's water.
And in any case, that aired in the fall and could have had no influence whatsoever on Xena, considering they were already neck deep in producing The Bittersweet. And then now we're at Xena.
Yay.
Hey! History of television musicals.
So, I mean, before we actually get into discussing The Bittersweet, we should leap forward in time just a little bit and engage with the elephant in the room, which is the other...
The Grey's Anatomy musical.
Yep.
The other famous musical. And
Scrubs.
Keep going.
Psych.
Beavis and Butthead.
Ellie McBeal.
Daria?
There have been a lot of musicals. Wow.
I'm telling you.
People love
Malcolm
this
in the Middle
genre.
did an opera.
Oh my
What?
gosh.
Who of them had that skill that they built an entire episode around it?
Beakrans, I would
Oh
imagine.
my god.
He can do everything. So yes, Buffy the Vampire Slayer's famous episode, Once More with Feeling, which I know many people where that's the only Buffy episode they've seen. That's how kind of infamous it is. Yeah, it is actually a recruiter episode for Buffy, which is wild because is Bittersweet a recruiter episode for Xena? Would you show someone who has never seen Xena The Bittersweet?
No.
If you're interested in musicals, yeah.
Okay.
If you're really into
If you're like really love musicals, you're like, hey, this is this show I love did this. They were really adamant about, writing in some lyrics that were like to make sense for people who didn't see the previous week or whatever.
Oh, and
like,
even including the previously.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because there was so much.
Which is the most traumatic previously ever constructed by the hand of man. You're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and it makes you want to watch the whole show. So perfect recruiter up this.
But Once More with Feeling, how do we feel about that musical episode, you guys?
I love it.
It's good.
I love it.
It's it's great.
What does it have in common with Bittersweet? Because I certainly see some similarities.
Thematically or musically or what?
I guess the similarities that I perceive are mostly thematic.
Okay.
I think they're both about characters at a crisis point.
Absolutely.
And in Bittersweet, the music is used to bring out these truths about Xena and Gabrielle, and through the revelation of those truths, they reach a state of healing.
Yes.
In Once More with Feeling,
The opposite.
it's the opposite. The music is once again used to reveal truths, but those truths tear everybody apart. Mm-hmm. But it is amazing how they both basically run on that same principle, which is that music will reveal the truth.
Yes.
And that's going to be hard. And they're both very dark.
Yes.
That's why they're so good.
Yeah. They're
And
not what
they're
you
so
expect.
memorable. Yeah, that way. Yeah.
You think, oh, you're doing a musical, it's going to be like a fun, happy, dancing musical. And that, in fact, is Xander's justification for casting the musical spell in Once More with Feeling. He thinks it's going to be fun.
Can't get over that sometimes.
Yeah.
Can I just...
He's responsible for, like, the deaths of,
burning
like, 50
deaths
people.
of many.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's all right.
His blood innocence is gone. But what it actually turns out to mean is something much more psychologically nuanced. I saw a great description of the bittersweet by, I can't remember now if it's Steve Sears or Rob Tappert. They called it a psychological musical or a psycho musical.
That sounds like Steve.
For sure. That's true. That does sound like Steve. So psycho musical, I think you could actually class both Bittersweet and Once More with Feeling in this genre of the psycho musical.
Now I want a psycho musical about Bates Motel. Yeah.
There probably is one.
Yeah. If you've conceived it, there is one.
Yeah.
Sell it to Broadway, if not, quick.
I mean, basically, that's what Broadway runs on. Anything that wasn't a musical can become one. Mm-hmm. So there you go.
Where's Xena, the musical?
Right here. Let's talk about it. So 312, The Bittersweet, written by Steve Sears and Chris Mannheim, with lyrics by Joseph LaDuca, Pamela Phillips Oland, and Dennis Spiegel, and directed by Oli Sassone.
Now, once again, like The Debt, The Bittersweet was originally going to be directed by Rob Tappert.
This was originally
Yeah,
Taps?
this was Rob's baby. He
Taps.
Taps.
That's what we call him now.
Well, this was Taps' baby. That's hard to say. Taps storyboarded the whole thing. This really was something he felt very strongly about. His mark is all over this. Like, I think I saw multiple quotes from Steve and Chris and Ole basically saying that, like, they just felt like they were proxies for Rob in a lot of ways, trying to get his ideas into this.
How many fish were featured? How could this be Rob's?
Well, it starts with that, and was a fish there.
Yeah, there's mention of fish and
There
lots
was
of
mention.
water. It's true, maybe just not enough fish in
Like
Taro.
actual fish.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you already mentioned the previously that were really intense, and that launches us into the episode.
Like, can you imagine? I'm going to tune into this show in case you missed it. Here's
Wait,
everything that just happened.
I'm not sure I've caught up. Whose baby killed whose baby?
Yeah.
Are any babies still alive?
No.
No, all the babies are dead.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it.
Just honestly, guys, based on like my likes and interests, if that was the first episode I saw based on those
You'd be
previously,
like, yes!
I'd be like, whoa, where do I get this show in my eyeballs right now?
So there is one person who could be successfully recruited by the Bittersweet.
For sure. But by the previously.
Just the previously.
So this episode begins with like a TJ Scott frame rate situation.
I thought so hard of TJ there.
We're in like a Amazon sweat lodge, and Gabrielle is getting some sweat therapy.
Yeah, we have this first shot of the camera traveling across her naked body.
Butts.
Yeah, we get some butts straight off the bat.
Stunt butts, though, right?
Oh, stunt butts.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, that sounds like there's more than one butt. One singular stunt butt.
So she's getting like whacked by some palm.
Yeah, which reminded me of, flagellation
Yeah.
in Catholicism. That's what you do for your sins.
I feel like there's got to be something symbolic with the reeds or the bronze. But if we dig into every symbolic thing in this episode...
we'll be here for 15 hours.
I think, yeah, so...
Yeah. We're also not actual knowledge musical people, right?
So we don't know anything
sentence
about
did I just
symbols.
say?
We don't know anything about music.
Yeah,
so
or how to talk.
we're just going to talk about everybody's hair for about 40 minutes.
There's some hairs, yes. But we're not hairdressers. We can't even do that. So, yeah. As the camera pans over the butt and down towards the head of Gabrielle.
Over the butt, towards the head.
We see this tear come out of her eye.
It's a very CGI tear.
Yes, it is. But, she's crying. She's sad.
it adds something. Maybe she hallucinated the tear. Even the tear isn't real. Her grief itself feels slightly unreal.
That's not true.
Yeah, I think the tear's so surreal.
And then we also zoom into her eye, which feels very dreamlike and subjective. It's saying that everything you're seeing is colored by her perception.
I like that.
It's really hot and sweaty in that sweat lodge, so I really love the cut to Effany drinking water from the ladle.
More water. We had steam in the sweat lodge. Now we have water in the ladle.
And Effany is our go-to exposition gal.
Yeah, I call her Exposition Effany.
Aww.
She does a good job.
She does a great job. We don't have anyone else in this episode to tell us what's going on
Exactly.
in a way that doesn't rhyme.
Exactly.
So,
And before we move on from the shot, I know it's just a shot of her like drinking this water, but the close-up of it and the way she's like staring very intensely at the hut, like, you feel that urgency. You feel like something is wrong and she's really worried. And I
Yeah,
really
no,
like
she's
that.
great, and I love, like, they did not need to start, her scene with her drinking some water from, like, this water barrel.
yeah, it feels a little off. I noticed that both of the close-ups in this scene, Effany's and Joxer's, they're very close. It's just like their head fills the screen, which is very unconventional for Xena. You don't usually cover a scene that way. So immediately, everything feels a little different to you.
You had some
We're not
amazing,
even in Illusia yet.
We had
so.
some amazing extreme close-ups, though, in Maternal Instincts.
Yeah, but it works its way up to them. This is right off the bat.
Effany explains that Gabrielle's been undergoing the purification ritual for 3 days. So she's been in that sweat lodge for 3 days. That's messed up.
Yeah.
And Joxer is very worried about her. He's like, she could be dying in there.
I think the assumption, or at least partly a quote from Chris Mannheim, is that she hasn't even been eating because you're like purifying your body. And she off the bat is starting with this huge atonement thing, and it's very intense. It's very, she is not in a good place. Could definitely be dying.
I like the detail that Effany refers to Hope as Gabrielle's child, which to me showed a measure of sympathy from Effany. Like, for her, this isn't like a vessel of evil. Like, she's like, no, this is a mother who lost her child.
Well, she had Gabrielle's confession.
Yeah.
Just about that.
Yeah, and that's kind of all she really knows.
Right, she's Teen Gabs.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's very significant.
But it's an important perspective for sure, just because, and we mentioned this previously, a little more ambiguity about Hope would have gone a long way. So like, but having this to point out that, for Gabrielle, this is true, is necessary.
It also seems important to me in an episode that very much centralizes Xena's grief for Solin's loss. You don't have as much of an opportunity for Gabrielle to grieve Hope. I mean, you could argue that she doesn't need it, that Hope, she doesn't have the same attachment to Hope as Xena has to Solin, but that's debatable.
I think her whole thing is just so intensely tied up with whenever she feels anything bad about Hope, it always comes back to, and then Hope killed Solin, so she has like a huge guilt right next to like that grief, So.
Yeah, you feel like in a way Xena's grief right now is much purer than Gabs's. Gabs's is as much guilt as grief, and that's very hard.
Xena went beyond the wall. She's on some mountain all up in that snow.
Shrieking. Shrieking.
It's really beautiful wailing.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're right. It's more wailing than shrieking.
Vocalizing is
what
how...
the closed captions say.
Yeah, you call it vocalizing. She is distraught, and, she already previously said she sings when she's moved, so she's very moved.
She only sings really when she's grieving someone. Yeah. That's the only time we've ever heard the character sing. So it makes sense that it would be here, and really just like gone much further than any of her previous funeral songs.
Ares shows up, of course, and kind of like whispers in her ear his whole shtick.
He has a line right off the bat. Nice vocal, but you sure can't dance to it.
Which is a jerk thing to say, just FYI.
It's a huge jerky thing to say.
Jerk.
Way to minimize the grief.
I know, yeah.
It's obviously setting up that this is going to be a musical for those in the house who don't know it. And it's also doing something that I want to start talking about. This is my hot take for the bittersweet.
Okay.
This part of the episode, which starts with Gabrielle in the sweat lodge and Xena up on this mountain, they're both out of their usual costumes. One is talking to Ares, one is talking to Callisto, who are sort of operating as guides. This, guys, is Illusia. It's all Illusia. This entire episode is set in Illusia until the very end. That is my hot take. That's why this entire opening feels insane, because it is not real.
Then how did they get there?
They're there already.
first?
They've been there.
They've
we don't know.
been hanging out on that beach.
Their grief took them to this place, and they're there.
That's a very hot take.
That's my hot take. I'll come back to it. The Gab Drag should have killed her, but not in Illusia.
Okay,
That's hot.
that's very hot.
It's a take.
It's sizzling.
But anyway, back to our mystical mountain with our spirit
I
guide.
do love the juxtaposition of the temperature situations that like Gabrielle is in
yes.
this like heat and
Guys,
Zena is
hot take. Zena and Gabrielle are the song of ice and fire.
oh shit because now she's on the mountain full of cabbage snow.
Yep.
That smells really bad.
What is it made out of?
She said it smelled like cabbage, probably soap.
I mean,
don't know.
Yeah,
traditionally they
something-
use potatoes for like
the
snow,
flakiness.
yeah, or
Oh.
soap. So I don't know
Or
which
both.
one. Yeah, maybe here it was both. Personally, this is not my favorite shot. I don't like the amount of CG that was in this episode. Not in Illusia, but like before Illusia.
But it's all Illusia, Vera.
I don't think it is. But I will like, that's definitely a thing that where like if you wrote the essay, I'd be like, interesting.
I'll keep harping on
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
I'm gonna write it before your
we're
eyes.
so excited
or
to
your
hear it.
ears.
Yeah, so I don't really like how, like I see how they wanted this grand visual of her on top of this mountain and this
Grieving.
helicopter shot around her, but I'm like, no thanks.
They
It's okay.
just didn't. I mean, they broke the bank already with this
Yeah.
episode, and I think this was maybe one thing too many for
Too many,
them.
yeah.
They couldn't really visualize this in a way that felt correct. It feels a little dinky.
They have both isolated themselves in
Yes.
very interesting and very unique ways that are very easy to juxtapose.
So Ares fills her brain with the fact that she's full of fire and she's full of revenge and that she should embrace it.
He says, "No good deed goes unpunished." I liked that one. Good pithy Ares line. And he directs her just as Callisto will later direct her. He says that, who betrayed you? Gabrielle.
Yeah.
He has to kind of hold her hand through that because I don't think it's in her head when she's up on that mountain. He has to plant that seed.
I think it's there.
But do you think she's in? Well, of course it's there. She
I mean, they
hasn't forgotten.
both, like
yeah.
that, these voices, the devil and the devil, I guess, on both of their shoulders. Vocalize what is already in their heads behind.
But I feel like it
subtextually.
directs it. They are just like both a swirl in so many feelings that I almost feel like they're both like there's so much inertia they like can't make up their mind what to do. And like both Callisto and Ares come and say, "Here's the thing you should be concentrating on," and they both say, "Okay, that makes me feel better, so it must be right."
So in the Sweat Lodge, Callisto appears to Gabrielle and does this exact thing.
She slaps her.
I loved how...
Like the palm frond,
Yeah.
right? The
Well-
palm frond becomes Callisto.
Sure. She's like, she's doing that thing where she's like leading the witness. Like Gabrielle reacts completely normally. She's like, I'm totally responsible for this. Like this is me doing the penance for my thing that I'm responsible for, which, that's the correct thing to do. And Callisto's like, it's Zena, isn't it?
Yeah, it is interesting because coming out of maternal instincts, it's so clear that Gabrielle feels guilty. Gabrielle knows she done wrong. She's already apologized.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that kind of coming from this place where she was trying to make it up to Zena and understood what had happened, she kind of has to be coaxed back into this place of blaming and being in denial. Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting. It works for the episode. You need it, but it is one of those things where you're like, oh, I thought she'd figured this out for herself.
She totally did. Callisto's like, you hate her. Like, and she's like, yeah.
But like
no.
at the end of maternal instinct, she was all, I love you, Zena.
I know. That's why they're like the devil and the devil.
I
And
guess
these
so.
are like feelings that are way pushed back in her. My question to you guys is, I feel like these devil characters should have been reversed. Like, I would have loved
It's a strange choice.
Callisto with Zena because it mirrors Callisto being Zena's guide in Illusia.
And because she still is, because this is Illusia.
But she's not because she's here with Gabrielle. So
Well, I'm not saying this is the same place as later Illusia, but this is like the waiting room for Illusia, and that looks
Or you
almost
don't
like
have to
real
sing.
life.
You don't have to
Well,
sing here.
I did like Callisto talking to Gabrielle in this scene in a way that Ares could not have, in terms of the idea that Xena made them both.
Yes,
she says.
that's a wonderful.
Why couldn't Ares have said Xena made you?
He could have,
But it
it's
doesn't
more
have the
personal.
He literally could have said Xena made you, like she made Callisto. We would have bought it. We would have bought it, guys. We would have bought it. And it would have continued the weird, like,
vibes
we already got.
It would have set up for Forget Me Not. Yeah.
It would have, all of it works from what we've seen previously of Ares and Gabrielle, where we are already kind of intrigued by that relationship. And I definitely would have loved to see Callisto hanging out on top of that mountain with Xena. Anyway, Xena rides into that Amazon village, and she is just full of hatred.
The music goes crazy. I think it's a new version of the Warrior Princess theme, our favorite.
Yeah.
I feel so worried about Argo here, you
I think
guys.
it's not Argo.
Really?
I
Because
think
it's
the first one
Illusia
is.
and nothing is
The
as
first
it
one?
seems.
Yeah, the first one's
The
Argo.
first one is Argo.
And
First one's
Argo,
Argo.
this is in character
Okay.
now. Like, let's get into this.
Yeah, we gotta
this
get
is the
it.
core of the
I gotta
episode.
make this
Argo's
clear,
feelings.
Because
Yeah.
this needed to be pointed out to me on the internet, because I can't tell. I have,
Force blindness.
force blindness.
Definitely she rides in on Argo, and Argo really does not like what's
His
happening.
eyes are... I'm
I
sorry,
forget.
misgender Argo.
It's hard. I mean, it's difficult.
Argo sounds like a boy's name.
It does.
That's true.
Her eyes are rolling. She just looks so freaked out by this whole situation.
She hates the rift.
Yeah.
That's it. And later, when Xena does the Gab drag, it's on a different horse. A horse who's like, sure, I'm down for this.
I read that in an original or an earlier draft of the script, there was actually a moment where Xena jumps on Argo and Argo won't do it. Much like Greater Good, where Argo just won't do that. But I won't do it.
Ephany instructs the Amazons to attack so they can protect Gabrielle. One of them is Zoe Bell.
Yeah.
Is this Zoe's first appearance in Xena?
I don't know, because I don't know what other stunts she may have done on the show before taking over as Xena's main stunty.
It's the first time I've noticed her face, like not in a she's doing a stunt for Xena face kind of way, but like she's
in the show.
There,
right in the
being an
shot.
Amazon.
Yeah.
And it shows you that probably most of those Amazons are stunties.
Yeah.
Who plays the Amazons.
She's great.
Ephany tries to stop Xena. Xena breaks her arm.
Yes,
That's
very
so
upsetting.
brutal. Yeah.
I loved that moment.
And she's just so casual about
Yes.
it. Like, it's like she doesn't even recognize Ephany. She's just like, bam.
Yeah, and that's just how lethal Xena is in general. Like
This is why I don't want it to be in Illusia the whole time. I want Xena to to be doing all of this, and it's crazy.
Look,
she's not in Illusia.
She does.
She's not.
It's all real.
It all really happens in
The
Illusia.
Dumbledore quote, yes,
Okay,
this
okay.
is happening in your head, Harry,
All right,
but
fine.
that doesn't mean it isn't real.
You're right, exactly.
It's Illusia, you guys. I think it's the
Everything
obvious
they do
one.
in
Everything
Illusia
happens
is
in
obviously
Illusia,
real anyway.
Yeah, it's
All right,
real.
I've worked myself
it's
back
Illusia.
around to.
Next time you see Ephany, she never mentions her arm being broken, does she?
That's true, but it would have happened if she would have been there too.
there you
Then.
go.
No, it's not. It's a green plane.
Well, her arm gets busted, and it's really upsetting. And Joxer runs into the sweat lodge to grab Gabrielle, and props for Ted for like carrying her. Actually,
Very romantic.
yes.
Oh, I love that when Gabrielle has that realization brought on by Callisto that she hates Xena and screams yes, she immediately screams no, and that's what makes him go grab her.
Yeah, you see that even when Gabs is being driven towards homicidal evil, she has to be driven really damn hard to get to that place. It does not come natural.
So the moment that he brings her out of that sweat lodge and Xena spots them, she launches the chakram, and I loved Ephany just like smacking her, reflexively on the shoulder, and that's what makes the aim be off. Otherwise, I
guess that would have been it. At least it's Illusia, so no harm done.
Stop it!
This is going to continue for the whole thing. I can't wait to get to actual Illusia. This should stop.
Okay, so here we are at a thing.
The Gab drag. The Gab is dragged.
Xena has a whip, the whip of Xena, and it wraps itself around Gabrielle's ankles.
No, let's not put blame where it's due. Xena wraps it. This all
The whip
Zena.
did it itself. Gabrielle's wearing this like toga situation.
Yeah, it's like a bed sheet tied
toga.
around her.
Yeah. And she tries to get the whip off, but like can't. And then Zena jumps on that horse.
Other
that's
horse.
Totally game for
Innocent
this.
bystander horse.
Nah, that horse was like, please pick me.
Oh, no.
And they're off. Gabrielle is being dragged behind the horse. Remember, you had a pin in this, so unpin that.
Yes, I mentioned Zena's introduction as a still evil warlord in the debt was dragging a soldier behind her horse with her whip. So here she is doing it in present day. Mm-hmm. And with the same crazed grin on her face, which is how you really know she's reverted to her past self.
This is interesting because they do a lot of like amazing horse coverage here. And of course, the last time we saw something that specifically magnificent was in Callisto. And she had a gleam in her eye there, too.
I think the thrill of the chase.
Yeah.
Here it's the thrill of the drag.
What do we think of all the journey that Gabrielle goes through here with her being dragged?
Quite a lot.
So many surfaces that she has to roll against.
It's like Zena specifically puts her like zigzags into all these obstacles.
Oh, look, there's the sand pit. Oh, look, gravel.
Oh, look, a
fire.
fire.
Yeah. Oh, look, just a vase hanging out gets knocked over. Basically, if there's an obstacle in her path, like, it's going to get knocked over.
It's like a game, you know, we get points for getting something on the mark.
But here's the thing, where both the fire and that rock that flies right at the camera lens, they both look really fake because they're CGI. Illusia.
Or 1998 terrible computer graphics.
Hey, they do a good job.
They do a really, I think Illusia looks a lot better than anything that's meant to match the quote-unquote real world.
I sure think that they did not need to do all the CGI obstacles because just the idea of her dragging her behind a horse was like a lot and enough.
Well, jumping off of
I mean,
that.
it feels kind of distracting, to be honest.
Yes.
The rock that shoots at us, like, why did that need to happen?
It's like as if we're in 3D glasses.
It's like
we need that stunt.
to make you feel more like you're there. I'm like, no, we're there.
Yeah, we're
Don't
watching
worry.
this.
We're very there.
Yeah.
I think that it should bring us to how I was surprised to find that the majority of the production staff of the program actually has gone on to say they thought it was much too much. And Rob, or Taps, I guess, as we now call him, literally has actually gone on to be like, I think even the idea of Zena killing Gabrielle was too far. Which I don't agree with.
I don't agree with
either.
But I do kind of agree with where Steve is coming from, where I think visually it is a lot and obviously became very difficult for a section of viewers who were very vocal about hating it because it's very, very violent. But he then goes on to explain we needed to get these two characters to like the very bottom of where they both could be. In order to then rebuild them. And I think that for these two characters, why the stuff that happens in the Rift is so intense and why something like this is so intense is because they have such a strong bond with each other that it takes something that huge to get them to a rock bottom separate place.
Absolutely. I mean, if one, again, like her daughter killed her son, like that is a lot to handle in a friendship. Right. Deal breaker.
The deal breaker, as we've said.
Once the deal is broken, you throw someone off a cliff and drag them for like 15 miles through sand, sludge, and etc.
I mean, we already know that Zena, it's so in character for her to completely lose her mind when somebody she loves is harmed in any way. So it just so happens that the perpetrator here is somebody she loves. Yeah.
Which I guess hasn't quite happened to her the same way. I mean, the last time we've seen a situation like this was the Furies, where she did almost kill her mother, and at one point thought about throwing herself over the edge of a cliff. Mm-hmm. So it's not like any of this behavior is out of character for Zena. I think I can definitely get on board the idea that they simply had too many surfaces. Like, I think the image of dragging Gabrielle out of that village to the nearest cliff is great. It just shouldn't have been a protracted sequence.
I agree.
It becomes funny. That's my issue with it.
I like some of the comedy tiny beats that come later not that are like post drag.
Yeah,
but
I like those
definitely it's
This should
a little
not
too
have
much.
felt funny. Yeah.
No, it should not have felt funny.
I guess you can pin this for like a later episode where they don't do any hilarious surfaces and the thing itself is like what's
and
good about
it's
it.
upsetting. It's a violent thing to do to someone, and I mean, you do feel that in it. Like it feels violent, but I think it is one of those things where you just have to toe the line. Extreme violence can often slip over into cartoon, and I think that's what happens.
Yeah, I agree. Because at the end of the day, like Renee said about this whole sequence, is that like, you know, Gabrielle more than likely would not have been able to survive this, and that if she had known what post production was gonna do,
because this
she
was all
would've-
shot by the second unit.
Yeah, and they
and
like
the stunty. Yeah.
exactly, yes, a dude stunty,
Dude stunty wrapped in a
sheet. That she would have played a lot of it differently, and the makeup would have been different. As she looks like, I mean, it's
Amazing.
She looks amazing. I think.
yeah.
Like,
Oh no, it's very flattering wound work.
and I love when this show like does that, and I honestly feel like we throughout the course of the show were deprived a lot of that aesthetic, but at the same time, like she was on fire. Like
Her butt was on fire.
So it was like, so it was just too much. I think we can all agree. Yeah,
She would have been dead like 3 miles back, but
And the
it's
rock.
Illusia.
oh, good thing.
So she's alive. It's fine.
Oh,
So Xena drags her to the edge of this cliff. It's really beautiful.
There's mist coming up because there's a waterfall directly beneath
A
them.
CG waterfall.
A CG waterfall because it's Illusia.
And I love the next, you know, the big part between them where Gabrielle is alive and her and Xena kind of face each other
yes.
in slow motion.
Oh yeah, well that you jumped over when she kicks her in the face, which is the part that I do enjoy as the comedy bit. It is quite nice.
I don't. That's why I skipped over
I
it.
think it's
What?
great.
Don't you love the visual of Xena
So,
picking
okay,
her up?
Just
over
screaming
Xena-
vengeance.
Xena picks her up and kind of like over her head, like doing weightlifting.
Yeah, like the bench press.
Yeah, which again, I'm already not there for just because like that's not a real thing. And
To you, it doesn't look.
it doesn't
like
look
because she's
as-
on.
Yeah,
a string.
it's not a real thing. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's
So-
true, and it doesn't look like it's taking her any effort at
Yeah.
all because it's Illusia.
Oh, goodness gracious!
Help us, audience, help! And she does scream vengeance. She's gonna chuck her
Which
over.
is funny. That's like the one word she knows.
I think it's really great that she screams vengeance and Gabrielle says, "I hate you."
Well,
Like
now
the-
here, listen. These are our words for the episode.
Yes.
the word of the day is vengeance.
And hatred.
Yes. So as she's about to throw her, Gabrielle wakes up or regains consciousness because of the fire and the rock and the dragon, and kicks her in the head with her
Foot.
heel.
I think it's called a foot punch.
a foot punch.
Yeah. Punch with the foot.
And it's really funny.
Yeah.
And you like that, Katie?
I
It's
find it a
puncturing-
nice breath of
yeah,
air.
it's puncturing Xena's kind of, dignity
Yeah.
there. Like Xena's literally screaming
She's
vengeance.
really surprised
Like
by
she
it.
needs someone to take her down to size. So yeah, that worked for me as a bit, a flash of comedy, physical
Yeah.
comedy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we are now at the
Finally, we
face-off.
get rid of the comedy, go away comedy. Now we're here at the amazing drama. Both of them rise in slow motion to their
These
feet.
beautiful shots have the opening credits
Yes.
over them, which just bums me out. Not that the opening credits shouldn't be there, and I don't know where they would have gone because,
Yeah.
then you're in Illusia because we're not there yet. And it would have been over that, so it's like I guess there's nowhere else for them to go. But it bums me out.
I mean, I kind
It's
of
fine.
like it in that it's giving prominence to those credits. So you're,
Sure.
you're reading the lyricist names.
Sure.
Like these people who really, like, this is their...
Oh, absolutely.
Masterpiece.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
that credits shouldn't be on the
But
screen.
you just want clean graphics of those parts.
Maybe if they move them like to the top.
How
of
are
the
we going to
screen.
gift these things?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I like to call this moment the A League of Their Own moment when the two sisters face off in the final game of the World Series.
Not sisters here.
Sisters who kiss.
Sisters to kiss.
Also, for Gabrielle specifically, reminded me of the Gauntlet, Xena Rising and the Gauntlet, because that was like that was
you
like
think
a,
she's dead, really?
yeah, because that was like that's what everybody's like. No one survived the Gauntlet, and then she rises. So here she rises too.
Yeah.
And so Gabrielle decides to go for the tackle and screams, "I hate you," and they fall over the cliff.
I think it's interesting that Gabrielle is actually the one who takes them over the cliff, not Xena.
Yeah.
You assume it's going to be Xena.
Because Gabrielle has the higher ground.
But in a way, it exonerates Xena a little bit and maybe makes it easier for her to like kill Gabrielle later in the episode in Illusia. Though we've been in Illusia the whole
She
time.
does the first attack here, and Gabrielle does the first attack there.
Yeah. I think that's a nice bit of parallelism.
So they fall off the cliff
Into
Illusia. Now they're actually going.
now they're there. Yeah.
They just passed from the waiting room of Illusia into like aggressive in your face Illusia. Like now they're allowed to realize that their illusions are illusions.
Oh no.
They fill through all this water and it's beautiful. And
Water is Xena's element.
Yeah, and we hear the voice of Callisto, but it is not Callisto.
Certainly not saying things we generally
Yeah.
associate with Callisto. In fact, she's talking about water, the opposite of fire. She says, "Absorb thyself in this great sea of the waters of life. Dive deep in it until thou hast lost thyself. And having lost thyself, then thou shalt find thyself again."
That's the flashback music.
Oh, yeah.
Don't confuse people.
"Even as it is written, she had her dwelling in the great sea, and was a fish therein." That's for you, Taps.
You made sure they included that line.
So, okay, this bit of recitation is from a book called The Book of Tokens, which is a series of meditations on the tarot,
Yeah.
written by a guy called Paul Foster Case, this American occultist who is very into Qabalah and the mystery schools. So he wrote this book that kind of combined tarot teachings with the Qabalah. Hence, this particular meditation is actually from the meditation of Mem, the Hebrew letter Mem, which applies, like, there are 22 Hebrew letters. We're going
Okay.
right into the weeds.
Just do it. Just go it.
With,
Listen,
Illusia.
tarot in this episode is a huge layer.
Yeah.
There's been so much written on it, and we should definitely touch upon it. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
we'll touch upon it. None of us know all that much about tarot. Everything we know, we basically learned in order to talk about it for this episode. If you're interested in what each of these tarot symbols really means and the different ways you can interpret them, you should absolutely go to your friendly neighborhood internet and there's so many interesting takes on this via that lens.
I love it as an aesthetic for the episode.
Yeah.
It's a cool choice and like adds this whole symbolic layer to all the characters. That's really cool.
Yeah, for me personally, like Christian iconography, we're all familiar with. Egyptian, we're familiar with. Like these famous world religions, like it's so easy to cull from that. But I think tarot, I don't, even though I kind of know what tarot is, I didn't really know like what was on individual cards.
Right.
I was like, pentacles, that's about it.
Yeah.
Some swords, so actually like familiarizing myself with these images and seeing how freaky they are and often very dark and strange. I enjoyed having the opportunity to do it. But I think there's something, sort of fresh about them. You don't often see them used as costume design or a musical.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It feels left field, but in a way that doesn't feel incorrect for the show. Like, the designs are clearly from 1900 whatever, but it doesn't feel incorrect for this crazy Alice in Wonderland land that they found themselves in.
And it's interesting too because tarot seems very much like it's taking from various religions and finding meaning in different aspects of each. And isn't that basically what Xena's doing? Taking from Greek mythology and Christian and Judaism and Hinduism and Shintoism.
Everything.
Finding these universal truths that are contained in all religion. And that seems very connected to what this fella, Paul Foster Case,
what you were about to say,
was doing in his book, The Book of Tokens. So that passage on water, which is, there are a few other little sections that Callisto will later also quote. They're all taken from the meditation of Mem, the Hebrew letter Mem. I'm not sure what number that is, but why am I harping on the numbers? It's because there are 22 cards in the major arcana, which is the trump cards, the face cards in tarot. There are also 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. So Paul Foster Case was very fascinated by that
Synergy?
yeah, by that synergy between the two. And he lined them up. So the very first card in a tarot deck is the Fool.
Okay.
And the first Hebrew letter is the Aleph, which is why Callisto in a moment says, I am the Aleph. Mm. The card that is associated with the Hebrew letter Mem is the Death card. Mm. So whenever you see water imagery, you should think about death and rebirth.
Whoa.
All right.
So Olive. Olive, the child of Natalie Portman, plucks out naked Xena from the waters.
She's dry immediately.
Yes.
And has very long hair, luscious hair.
Very luscious. and it's weird. Immediately, we're in a weird place.
Well, I feel like you almost don't quite know yet. Like, there's golden light. It's all shot in close-up, so you can't quite see the extent of Xena's nudity, for example. And then what's the first thing that happens when you get to this magical land? The show's very first lesbian kiss.
Yeah. Well, official?
You mean like
lip
ladies
contact.
Ladies with contact?
The lips meet in this kiss.
What about the wedding one?
That was on the corner of the mouth.
Corner?
It was just on the corner.
That's being rude to the quest so hard.
The quest, but this is a good question.
You guys and your quest.
Anti-quest feeling.
This is an actually really interesting point to discuss, because why was this okay? I mean, and like the quest couldn't finish.
It's interesting.
Because it's your leads, and it was, actually in the plot. Like, I think once you go to a magical land where everything's a dream, you can get away with stuff, which is why they throw this in here.
Silhouetted.
Yeah.
Do you think they were also like, maybe they'll pass for TV CPR? Because she's like
waking her up.
Xena,
that's really...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Xena's not aware.
I mean, that is technically what it is. You're right. She does seem to, breath of life her.
Do you think that the censors were Xena Callisto shippers?
Well, it reminds me very much of Once More with Feeling, which also fit in a lot of lesbian subtext in the Tara Willow song that maybe wouldn't have quite been allowed if they weren't singing about it.
Right.
So I think there is something that, the musical allows you to do things that you might not otherwise be able to do. I think the fact that it's so removed from the usual world of the show that you can get away with stuff.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the viewer is so overwhelmed by everything that's happening that you're not like, oh, whoa, what was that just now? Yeah.
Okay, well, I certainly enjoyed it.
You noticed it.
I noticed it big time, yeah. In fact, when we were rewatching it, the thing that was the most memorable to me from this musical was this opening bit of Callisto doing her little ditty.
Yeah, you made a big deal about that. That stuck in your brain a lot. Is it because it's kind of the most outlandish?
It is so aggressively weird. Yeah. Nothing else in this episode comes close to the weirdness of this. So you see that shot of her bag with the blinking eye. I think that's the first thing you see before you even see her. Yeah.
And then she's wearing a weird outfit.
She's wearing a weird outfit. She has this page boy cut.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, her outfit is almost an exact replica of the Rider-Waite art for the Fool card in tarot.
And what she introduces Illusia to us.
Are you gonna sing?
I can't sing, guys.
Sing!
Glad you're feeling strong. Thought I might lose you. Trying to use words, sing a song. This is Illusia.
That's pretty good.
That's what she did.
Yeah, you need the squeak there at the end.
The squeak is what sealed itself in my brain so hard. But this was, and then we go to credits, right? This was so
I think just commercial break.
Oh,
we've already done credits.
Did credits? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, all their commercial breaks in this episode were amazing.
Yeah. You have this flourish of the music at the end. And you're just like, what the fuck?
That's literally how they ended every act. With the audience going, what the fuck? So then Callisto kind of explains via song what's going on.
Don't use words, sing a song.
Yeah. I like that both her and Joxer kind of had to refresh Xena and Gabrielle about this. You can't talk here. You better fucking sing.
To me, it's really funny. It's very much like the therapy session where they're like, use I statements, and you keep forgetting, and they're like, fuck you, use the I statement.
Yeah, I really felt that when Jack started, because he kind of like side said it. He was like, can you just sing,
Please just sing. And neither of them does, you notice, for a long time. I mean, I think Gabrielle just remains silent.
Yeah, she just
but
taking it
Xena quite deliberately, I think, flaunts the rules and is just like talking. And sometimes maybe it could qualify as talk singing, but it's really just talking. She is not having it with these rules.
So Callisto's purpose in this part of the episode is to kind of introduce you to Illusia. And in her little ditty here, one of the lyrics is that Illusia is music, a world built on rhyme. It's carved out of space in the absence of time. So it's the TARDIS.
Oh, yeah. Well, it does seem important that time doesn't exist in Illusia. So in other words,
so they've been there for like years? What does that mean? Like
well, they're not going to drown.
Yeah, they won't drown.
Okay.
Or die.
Yeah.
So it wasn't TV CPR.
They've been kind of put in the naughty corner by the universe is really what has happened.
She also says, you've tasted how evil and good coexist. The bitter and sweet of it.
Episode title.
Ooh.
And the little dog goes,
All in the lips that you kiss.
Oh my God, the little dog.
and I feel like this is so easy to like overlook just because, number one, there's a freaking ridiculous cute little dog
Singing.
Singing.
Its little mouth opens and closes and words come out. So just take that in for a second.
But, and you're still recovering from that kiss that just happened. But what is the lyric? Like, the lyric can go beyond that. I mean, clearly it's also talking about Gabrielle.
Yeah, man.
The lips that you kissed. I don't think it's really... I mean, Callisto is a symbol.
Yeah.
You know, it's clear from the beginning, at least to us, the audience, that this isn't really Callisto. This is someone who looks like Callisto who's trying to put Xena in touch with some essential truths.
Yeah.
So it seems important that that's who kisses her. Not Callisto.
Yeah.
So calm down, Callisto Xena shippers.
Hey. But it's interesting because it's evil and good coexisting in one human, and
Which is
they both have
Callisto
to
and
reckon
Gabrielle
with
and Xena.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the title of The Bittersweet.
Yes.
Obviously, it's a musical pun with sweet.
It's a hotel pun.
And a hotel pun. But also, the fact that you can have these contradictions side by side, bitter and sweet, and that they coexist.
So joining the little dog in this song is a snake, a
Bull,
bull,
an eagle,
Lion.
and a lion.
Some
3 out of
Sphinxes
4
later.
of those are Hogwarts houses.
Oh, great.
Whoa.
Which shows you how these symbols, appear in all sorts of different works. I bet in Jungian psychology, there's some stuff with these guys. They feel like 4 aspects of people's personalities. The Sphinxes scare the shit out of me.
Because they're the most CG?
They are the most CGI. They have these like weird mannequin faces. I just found them so
That wasn't
disturbing.
working for you.
I read in the behind the scenes materials that the original idea was for all of them to have Lucy's face.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, no! Oh, no! Why did you even say that? I don't even want to imagine that. Oh, the horror.
I love
Was she like,
every weird fucking detail about this crazy sequence.
Yes.
Could it be more crazy?
No.
No. I think when we were watching it, this is when we ran up to get drinks, right? Because we were like, this is fucked up.
Oh,
like when
so
you
you
guys were
paused
watching
it.
it for the first time.
Oh, no, yeah, we paused it and I went, I need a drink.
It's so, I keep using this word aggressive, but yeah, there's something like an assault. Like you're just like orally, like all these little creatures are singing, you hear all these voices going,
Yeah.
and
They're running on the wheel.
Right, they're running on the wheel. They're just everywhere you look, there's like something else singing at you.
Yeah.
Like the CGI snake pops out of the wheel and Xena throttles it. You're just like, what is happening?
If we want to talk about how like musicals are like defined by how different they are to other genres and how they are meant to be a spectacle that demands that you like stare at it and be like, oh my goodness, like this is the definition of a spectacle.
Yeah.
You're just every part of the mise en scène of this thing is like packed with something
Yeah.
that means something.
I noticed that you can't see the horizon. Like you sort of feel like you're outside. There's like attempts at greenery and things, even though it's so clearly a set. But you can never, in any scene in Illusia, see the horizon, which to me feels very claustrophobic. And this sense of there just being stuff everywhere. Every shot is packed with color.
Yeah, it's just super weird. This reminds me, okay, I read this article called Musicals Hit the Small Screen, Attention, Listening, and TV Musical Episodes, which was written by a guy named Anahid Kasabian. Sorry, I totally butchered that, but in any case, it's this whole thing about how like musicals really demand attention from an audience, and I don't know if it's anything that is more demanding than this sequence in the whole thing.
Yeah.
And there's this amazing paragraph about this episode that I just really love. All the TV musical episodes are spectacles as well. In Xena, for example, Xena and Gabrielle are drawn into the land of Illusia by their hatred for each other. The episode becomes a cross between Brecht and Dada, full of Kurt Weill-ish numbers and visual dreamscapes and unconscious logics. It's genuinely strange television, visually sharing more with Jean Cocteau's La Sang d'un Poète, I can't speak French, than with any of Xena's usual ancestors. Like, when we're talking about this scene, like, this paragraph pops into my head because it is weird.
Yeah.
It is weird.
I get the Cocteau. The only Cocteau
Yeah.
I've seen is Beauty and the Beast, and I think of those, like the actual human hands stuck through the wall holding torches. And that's like a decorative object in the Beast's castle. These just human hands that like move. And I was always like really messed up by that. That to me is the kind of surreal imagery that's here.
Yeah.
Where you just like, your brain after a while just doesn't even know how to interpret. Yeah, which is why, as fascinated as I am by all the tarot readings of scenes like this, after a certain point, I'm like, I don't feel like you can apply any kind of interpretive logic to this. Like, what's the Sphinx doing there? I don't know. Why does Anubis kind of have like a rock and roll sound to his voice?
I think my favorite part of this whole sequence, while it's so crazy and you get wrapped up in just watching the creatures, is Xena's reaction to them. Because she, like us, is like, what? And just keep in mind that this is Lucy Lawless not knowing what the fuck she was seeing while filming
That's
it.
a
So
good
you
point.
have a lot of her being like, okay,
Anubis-
now look over
Anubis
there.
looks
Now
like-
look over there.
Don't you think Anubis was really there at that point?
Okay,
Like
so
a
she's
dude
seen the dog
in a
and
dog
Anubis
mask.
and Callisto. Yeah.
Well, I do love that they always do bring it back to her because there was a reference by, I believe, Steve, or maybe, let's say Steve, but it probably wasn't.
I think it was Oli.
Oh, Oli.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm going to say?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, go for it.
Go say it.
That, like, they would create all these set pieces and jokes and, like, fun visual things in the songs and in the numbers, but they didn't have anything to do with Xena. And so everything needed to be rethought to make sure that everything always came back to Xena because the television show is called Xena Warrior Princess.
To
and it needed to be
Xena.
exactly motivated by her. So, like, even in something as simple as making sure you see her processing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, it helps ground it. Otherwise, if she were just immediately enfolded into the madness, you wouldn't have that person you could look at to be like, this is crazy, right?
Yeah.
But Xena, you look at Xena and you're like, oh, phew, she thinks this is weird. And it is so weird. The closest television analog I could think of was Farscape.
Farscape.
Yes. John Quixote, right?
Yeah.
That episode.
Yeah.
That's a video game.
Right.
They don't sing in that, but it is absolutely like maybe the most bonkers episode of that show, and that is saying something because that show's
Farscape
completely
is
bonkers.
the most bonkers
Yeah,
of
in
all the
general.
television.
So that is a space opera, and
Yeah.
this is a
Opera.
Opera.
There you go.
Callisto conjures into being this wheel of fortune, which is another tarot card. I thought, and I was happy to see that Taps and company also thought that this was just so clearly like the Looney Tunes thing. That that's all,
Oh,
folks,
shit.
with her sticking out of it. That was absolutely what they were going
Yeah.
for.
And some of the first musicalness on television.
So there you
come
go,
on.
a direct reference to
Yeah.
it here. The wheel is important because it seems to be the portal through which Xena travels throughout Illusia.
Yeah.
It at first looks like a chakra. When she first draws it into being, you just see the outer ring of it, and it's very chakra-y. We've often talked about the chakram as being a symbol of the vagina. So I think it's interesting that here in this land full of water, permeable, feminine, closely associated with the moon, our portal is vaginal, and we often see people getting sucked through it.
Love it.
Awesome. So then you have like a birth canal situation with the river.
Rebirth!
Yeah, and when we cut to Gabrielle. floating along.
Before then, we have, of course, angelic Gabrielle appearing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right, with her wind.
Yeah, which, to me represents that kind of pedestal Gabrielle for Zena.
That's good, right? You even hear the chorus underneath her going,
Oh.
This conception of Gabrielle that Zena has that perhaps didn't ever exist or did exist and is no longer.
and she's there alongside the eagle, bull, snake,
Yes.
these magical creatures.
Yes.
Gabrielle is one such magical creature.
This leads us to Xena being like, we're done with this shit, basically, and like does her little like, you like little ditties? She sounds like Meg.
She does. She's doing a Meg voice. She's been recostumed as the High Priestess, another tarot card.
And she goes, fine, I got one for ya. You're acting so strangely that I hardly know ya, but still I wouldn't trust ya as far as I could throw ya. And then Callisto retorts with, you're wrong not to trust one that knows you so well. I never betrayed you. That was Gabrielle, which is like so good.
And I love that idea because, like, the idea that Callisto is trustworthy because she doesn't have any secrets from Xena.
She's an open book.
Yeah.
She's always been that way, too. Yeah, I love this casting of her as the fool, because I definitely think of her as being a kind of, like, fool in the Shakespearean sense in the show. Like, she's always telling, like, we've talked about her puns, like, which are amazing. Like, she's always someone who kind of states what she thinks and kind of cuts characters down to size. And this is very much the role of the fool in King Lear. Like, just looks around at all the bombastic idiots and says, like, you guys are dumb.
So before we transition from this scene, it's definitely worth mentioning that while Hudson is great, and she definitely did the song speaking, she didn't actually do the singing.
Which is amazing because
mind-blowing.
her singing double is quite seamless, I find.
I had no idea. Like, you guys told me.
I was like, wow,
what?
Hudson can really sing. Like, it just sounds like her. It's her vocal style, and she's so specific.
Yeah, so this is Michelle Nicastro. And partially, I think the reason for that is that Hudson was in the studio when Michelle was recording this, so she maybe they worked on it together.
Gave her notes.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
that's really good.
But even just down to the vocal quality.
Yeah.
And if you listen to the recording, you hear it, there's a difference, but the performance is very Callisto-esque.
Yes.
Or Fool Callisto-esque, I should say.
No, definitely. Yeah.
But not true, perhaps, for others.
Yeah.
in the main
This is
cast.
definitely the best of the vocal doubles.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Although, we only really have those two.
Yeah,
there's
but-
two.
Okay, there's
And
two.
this is the best
This
one.
is best.
Yeah, and because, Lucy sang, Kevin
Yeah.
sang, Ted sang Joxer's song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we just have Hudson. I wonder what Hudson, how Hudson is as a singer, that she wasn't allowed to do this
she was
herself.
good enough to do the weird half version.
I guess it's worth saying that these songs are really hard to sing.
Yes.
Yeah.
You notice that none of us are really attempting them.
No.
Like, they are not for the...
My attempt was amazing.
Yeah. And I think this is also a big difference between the Xena musical and the Buffy musical, which is that the Buffy musical, the music's quite simple. It's very easy for even a non-professional to sing,
I
which
wouldn't
makes
call
sense.
it, I mean, simple might not be the exact correct word for it, 'cause it's not like the music is doing simple things in...
I think it requires
But-
a lower vocal range or a shorter vocal range.
It's whatever Sarah Michelle
I don't
Gellar
know enough
Yeah.
about music to quite understand, but I think there isn't a lot of key changes and that kind of thing in the Buffy music. Yeah.
You definitely, the stuff later on in this episode.
Yeah, I mean,
is
this
just
you really-
nothing
This
like
is
that.
operatic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
you
rock
see.
opera situation, and you need to have a good voice for these songs, which is what makes it, as we've mentioned earlier, less accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not as hummable. Though we've
It
been
gets
humming
stuck
it
in
all
your head,
week.
which is part of my problem with musicals is that they get stuck in your head, and they're such a part of the whole thing that it's weird to me when a random song is stuck in your head. That's so much part of a giant story. That's just me and musicals. So anyway, birth canal, aka the river.
Ooh, there's a beautiful shot in this transition of Xena's shadow on the wheel.
Oh,
Yes.
Which is very evocative.
And goes
to
a
me.
long way towards, I'm not sure exactly what aspects of the wheel are actually built production stuff and what is CGI, but it makes it feel more real. I think the wheel is one of the more successful elements of CGI in this episode. Like, you really buy it as a physical presence and scenes.
Birth Canal River, and Gabrielle is plucked from it naked by her guy.
Zena was also naked.
Yeah, we mentioned that.
The naked. We didn't mention, though, the amazing shot out of a Western movie with Xena's naked legs framing Callisto in the background, crouching and kind of shimmying closer.
Yes.
But yeah, we do have these nudity themes. They both wash up here, stripped.
Yeah.
They are like newborn babes. Emphasis on babe.
Oh no.
Chucks her,
Yuck.
plucks her from the river.
He's hanging upside down. It is meant to recall the tarot card, the Hanged Man.
And he does his Jaxter the Mighty song, which, as you remember, he practiced in Meg's Tavern.
Yeah, and this is the same orchestration, I think, with the, what is it, a lute? Ukulele? What's that
That's not a
instrument?
ukulele,
I
no.
don't know
I
instruments.
think it's a lute.
Yeah. Katie, you love the shot of him when he's behind the tree, right? Where all you see are the
the
arms.
little hands.
Yeah, the
with
hands
playing.
emerging from behind the trunk.
It's just funny.
Yeah.
It's just funny. Yeah.
So this part has like plays on Gabrielle's nude, and he can look at her. He.
Not our fave joke.
The usual.
You know, I do my best to defend Joxer, but they do always keep giving him these peeping Tom qualities or these just like
They
you're
held
naked
back
qualities.
from incorporating the go-go music into the
Yeah.
Gabrielle behind the
that's
bush.
true. That was notable restraint on their part not to go back to the Go-Go's.
But at the end of the day, he's here to guide Gabrielle, and he is a trustworthy guide because he loves her.
And he
gives-
conjures her a beautiful dress out of grass, which I thought was a quite magical effect. I
And
liked
Gabrielle's
that.
element is earth.
Yep.
Gabrielle's element is earth. Well done. She is dressed as the Empress.
Okay.
Cool. So, two guides that love their subjects lead them to very specific places. Callisto leads Zena to this like dark, stony castle area where there's a bunch of warriors.
The little dog leads the way and barks up at the castle doors. And apparently that's an exact replica of a shot from Wizard of Oz.
Oh.
Which is another great touchstone for this episode,
Yes.
I would say. You know,
Excellent.
you have your guides, you have your stranger in a strange land. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing that you previously mentioned, how the tarot is just such a new crazy design, but it was so easy to make this episode be like either Wizard of Oz themed or like Alice in Wonderland themed.
Right. And in fact, I saw another quote from Tap saying that was exactly his thinking. He wanted to do a Xena in Wonderland. That was the original idea. It didn't occur to him that it should be a musical until much later. He wanted tarot, he wanted Wonderland, and later they realized singing would work.
Okay.
Yeah, and work for the end of the semi-end of the rift because of its musical qualities. It all came together.
Yeah.
But it's
it
so
really did.
original that you know, like I don't sit around going like, oh, look at this imagery from Wizard of Oz. Like I'm watching this Xena musical is doing its own thing.
Yeah. Well, again, you know, I feel like Wizard of Oz culls from these kind of religious symbols, and you can find all sorts of papers written about, you know, like the Freemasons and how they influenced Wizard of Oz.
Oh my God.
Freemasons and tarot, also a thing. So again, these are all connected.
Jaxter leads Gabrielle into basically, I mean, it's Podadia. So it's very full of light and these like calming villagey activities.
Yeah, there's straw,
Baking bread.
there's flowers, baking bread.
Yeah, it's very
hanging
homey
laundry.
and it's cuddly.
Everybody's
over there.
wearing orange and green, these very earthy colors to match Gabrielle's element.
Yeah,
But at the same time, they're singing about how like closed-minded and boring they are.
villagers love peace, peace, peace.
Nothing changes with the time. We don't even change our minds. Yeah, I mean, I love this song because, I mean, the war song, it's so clear. Like, we're bad, we're dudes, we kill people. And the villagers, at first, they seem so nice and happy and accepting.
Yeah.
But the more the song goes on, the more you're like, they're exactly the same as the soldiers.
It was a little Wicker Man. It was like,
It
you know,
is.
the cozy village turned sinister.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is how Gabrielle feels about Potidia. Like, for her, it is
Right.
closed-minded. It is claustrophobic. Like, she does not want to be there. So as happy and, like, consoling as it is, homecoming. She's like, oh, yeah, I remember why I hated this place. Except she doesn't.
And this is meant to be home for both of them,
Right.
which is interesting.
Zena's
Yeah.
home is at the head of an army. Gabrielle's is Potidia.
We are reminded of Lilla, sister.
My favorite. This is the ultimate. Lilla in this episode with her weird
Scrunchy hair.
off-key voice and scrunchy hair.
Kelly Kapowski again?
Yeah.
A little bit.
And her oddly sarcastic singing about how they would have welcomed hope into Potidia.
It's like the least welcoming sound.
Yeah, it's just strange. Oh, she's MVP.
Yeah, no, she's so good, and she like doesn't blink. She kind of like swoops at Gabrielle around this column, and it's very disturbing.
Yeah.
Does not feel like the Lilla we know.
But this song is a great way to have these two divided. So now you see them in these two ideas of home. You see them in this way that they were before they met each other. And this is a big musical theater-y type of set piece where you have your different groups singing different styles of the same song. I think it's called like counterpoints. And definitely the biggest influence I feel like for this that they probably even said was the Tonight Quintet Quintet in West Side Story.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Jets versus
Sharks. You have everybody coming at each other.
Yeah.
Everything is coming to this big crescendo.
Yeah, and it's great because as much as it feels oppositional, you know, two opposites coming at each other, they're the same. I think you feel that in the music. And then also in the staging, which Oli Sasson and Jeff Calhoun, the choreographer, did a great job with, which is like the camera work is exactly the same. The way it travels across the line of soldiers and travels across the line of villagers. And you see these sort of little choreographed bits that each of them do. And even though those bits differ, it's the same basic movement to the point where you are equating these two groups of people.
In Zena's home, her warrior lair, the, you know, ultimate head of it is introduced, which is Ares. He is in a throne. The throne rotates, which is kind of like Caesar.
I thought of Caesar. Yeah.
He also had like
ridiculous dramatic.
Yeah, the dramatic
turn.
like throne facing the wall for no reason except to turn dramatically later on. Yes.
He is dressed as the Emperor, card from tarot.
He's dressed not quite like what it looks like in the tarot, but in an amazing way. That's like sinister Disney, right? Because he has like these classic like Greek curls in his hair.
I love those curls so
Yeah.
much. Like
It
Shirley
was
Temple
supposed
curls.
to be a very like ancient Greek kind
Yeah.
of dress situation. Yeah.
I guess so. It was a little dressy.
Yeah.
A little bit of a frock.
I believe Kevin Smith hated this outfit.
I
Aw.
love it.
Yeah.
He doesn't like frocks.
No, he did not like frocks and just kept calling it like a dress and be like, it was a nice dress, I guess.
He probably
Like,
didn't like the curls in
but
his hair
the
either.
curls are fantastic.
They look
I
so
love it.
good.
I love
I
his
do want that to be his
crown.
hair all the time.
He looked the best there. Like if this was how Aries looked all the time, I would be way more into Aries, I think.
Oh, really? You
Yeah.
really like those
Wow.
curls?
I really love it. Because it makes him seem, you know, like
Greek.
ancient Greek,
Yeah.
which is what I
What
love. The
about
aesthetic
Zena's
I love.
fun hat?
Yeah.
she wears a
The
hat.
soldiers do that. Well, Ares strips her, which
Whoa.
was quite a moment. Cuts off her high priestess dress, and then the soldiers clothe her in this charioteer outfit,
yeah.
which is more of like a masculine costume, which I liked.
And
she matches
Yeah,
Ares.
of course. They are a power couple.
Yeah,
and
they have the same colors.
They ride on like those weird sphinxes.
Yes, the chariot tarot card has those sphinxes. One black, one white.
They were the same.
I think they were the same, but
were, like, the ones we
in the
met.
previous tableau with the Fool, there was a white column and a black column. Okay. And then with the Hanged Man and Gabrielle, there were black and white tiles on the floor. So this is getting into the yin-yang imagery, which becomes very important to the show. And bittersweet, you know, these two opposites living side by side.
Well, it all comes to a head, and the villagers arm Gabrielle with a scythe, and the warriors give Xena a sword.
Just a case of killing to be kind, says Lilla.
Sinister Lilla.
God!
Sinister Lilla's the best.
So our gals are marching towards each other through this very like gauntlet-esque choreography, I thought.
Yeah, the two lines
Yes.
of villagers / soldiers, and they're all, everybody has a weapon.
Yeah.
The villagers have farm implements. The soldiers have swords.
Yeah. And they meet.
Right at a door, right?
Yep.
There's almost like just a wall that separates Potidia from this warlike castle. They open the door in this like very, very handheld shaky shots as they open the door, and you realize that there was just no space that's separating them.
Who does the first blow here?
Gabrielle, again.
She
Yeah.
charges into war place.
Right.
Symbolic of Gabrielle leaving Potidia.
Yeah, Gabrielle leaves Potidia and then is very swiftly killed.
Yep.
Vera doesn't like that.
This is tragic. I didn't think of
It's
that.
metaphors and stuff.
I loved it.
I think this works a lot. I mean, okay, so Zena has killed Gabrielle. Gabrielle, noble effort, but going up against Zena.
Really terrible. Yeah.
Very swiftly, Zena stabs her in the gut. And I think that this works on a couple of levels because you have Zena, like, acting out what she wanted to do on the cliff and, you know, enacting vengeance for Solon, and it's supposed to make her feel better by completing this vengeance thing. And I think it also works on the level where when you have Gabrielle come in again later at the end of the scene as a kind of metaphorical Gabrielle, that if that was her leaving Potidia, right, she in a sense is responsible for killing that version of Gabrielle, which would have been like that angelic pedestal Gabrielle that we saw her imagine on the top of that wheel card thingy. You know what I mean?
So she's finally destroyed that idealized version of Gabrielle.
Yeah.
Maybe a necessary thing for Xena to do in order to see Gabrielle.
And I think that will come back in the lyrics for the last song.
Yes. Yeah. Good point. It's interesting that you bring in this idea of vengeance actually not being satisfying, because after Xena has killed Gabrielle, we have the Fool embodied by Callisto coming in and saying, "Did that help?" Which is interesting considering we just saw the actual flesh and blood Callisto get her vengeance, and it was so unsatisfying, profoundly unsatisfying for her. So it's great to have those themes continue.
I believe she's playing Justice at that moment.
She is, which works even better.
Yes.
Yeah, she's dressed, I guess, it's a similar costume to the Fool's, like the same colors, the red and the green, but you see these little scales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joxer is...
He's the hermit.
And he, like, professes her dead.
Yeah, he uses his candle to figure out that she's dead and has this very grim makeup look.
Ares comes in and he says, "This once beloved friend has been slain by your hand." I mean, he sings that. and I loved how Xena drops the sword, like, so hard right there. And
She's guilty, you feel.
Yeah, no, it, like, dawns on her. Like, I love how you see the process of her mind in basically, like, this whole episode. Then we have a sexy tango.
Ares changes Xena's costume again. Now she's wearing a slinky red dress, of course, but it has a cool design on it of a skeleton. And this is supposed to remind us of the death card in tarot, which, as you remember, was all the source of the water imagery from Paul Foster Case, all death. So, of course, Xena herself must embody death. What's interesting about this card, it doesn't really look like a slinky tango dress, but it does involve death riding over a bunch of flower-bedecked village people. So it's interesting that the tango is on top of Gabrielle's corpse.
They are dancing around
really dark stuff.
Yeah, it is.
But it's like everything that Ares wants, right? Because he just wants her to be to melt into him.
Yeah, so musicals wise, the use of a tango here is perfect because it has that sultry, seductive quality, which, Aries constantly trying his best to get
Maybe
Xena.
if he was like this all the time. Guys, I was there for it today. I was
You're
into this.
Aries and bittersweet.
Yes, this was a hot tango. Yeah, and he looked good. She looked good.
Do you know that originally they were going to do the tango with her still in the warlord costume?
No, you gotta get out of that
You
hat.
gotta get out of that because, like, the, slinkiness of this dress really worked.
They commissioned it really last minute, and Nyla Dixon was like still sewing it onto her
Basically,
as they were about to shoot.
Yeah.
So that turned out amazingly well, and I think really makes the sequence work. MVP for that dress.
Legit.
The tango ends with this, like, sexy dip. And, of course, he dips her, like, right into frame where she's staring at dead Gabrielle, who they were just dancing over.
The biggest mood killer when she finally sees her.
Yeah.
And she just kind of flirps down to the floor because she's like, all right, I'm done with the sexy tango because she's now staring at what she's just done. And you get this great shot of Ares and Fool Callisto doing the angel devil shoulder shot, which is great. You have that one side tempting one way and this other side going, but really? Is that what you wanted?
She says, let go. That's clearly the most important line.
Yeah, let go of the anger.
Yes.
Meanwhile, Ares says, ding dong, the bitch is dead. Wizard of Oz.
Thank you.
In case you didn't know.
Wouldn't it be funny if in the Wizard of Oz they did say "Ding dong, the bitch is dead"?
That would be
like,
something.
what?
That would be not good. So here comes the most heartbreaking moment in the whole thing. Xena cradles Gabrielle and says, in this little girl voice, "I killed Gabrielle."
So sad.
Yeah, Lucy killed it with this delivery.
Oh, it's so, especially because we've just seen really like 25 minutes of episode in which Xena is basically frozen in a homicidal rage in which she wants to kill Gabrielle.
Yeah.
So this just went so far in like making you go, oh, I know this character again. This isn't a stranger.
So then Gabrielle comes out of the shadows and's like, what?
Bitch, you killed me!
Yeah.
It's not that accusatory. It's mildly accusatory. But this is why I do like the reading of it as this symbolic Gabrielle. It works on so many levels. Because this is like kind of a big thing that they're dealing with in the huge blame game that they are about to do and how far back it goes.
There's a little bit of humor here, again, I feel like, in the way that Xena's, like, so awkward about it. Because she clearly was...
It's not you, babe!
Yeah, babe! It's just an illusion!
We were on a break!
Yeah,
We were on a
totally that.
break. Oh my god.
Totally that.
Yeah, I love that all of a sudden she's having these crazy doubts and that she's just very confused all of a sudden because it is just like, well, what have I been thinking? Like, what has been taken over me? You know, because she really did.
Killing Gabrielle made her feel weird, and she's like, what?
Yeah.
This is also the first time the characters have really interacted the entire episode.
Yeah.
And it feels actually quite familiar because they're both... Xena, at least, it seems very aware that I'm in a weird situation and I want to solve it. Like, she's trying to reason out Illusia.
And she does.
Yeah.
She does end up doing it.
She does end up doing it. But, like, to me, it's interesting how a little bit of, like, regular Xena energy was suddenly injected into the musical because you have a problem suddenly. Illusia is a problem that Xena, with Gabrielle's help, if she can just get her to cooperate, wants to solve.
Lightning strikes and kind of, like, transports them through that wheel to a tower.
That is the tower from Tarot.
It busts open the roof of that tower, and the girls are inside yelling at each other. But what happens when they yell?
It echoes. They're in this dark, ruinous chamber.
Chamber.
Yeah. Where, Xena's talking about how everything has been like a big torment. You get all these odd shots of the roof collapsed.
Yeah, there are these weird point of view shots that I think are like literally Echo point of view. If Echo were a person, which it is in
because the
Greek
camera
mythology.
like moves.
Yeah, you have these odd flying around shots of the ruined dome. Yeah.
But here, so we have Xena kind of starting to like really suss out what's going on. Gabrielle has a new outfit. It's got scales on it.
It's cool. Yeah, it has still some of the white flowiness that recalls both her bedsheet and a little bit of her Empress costume. Just the sort of virginal energy of it. But then, yeah, this like reptilian, almost like a breastplate, which felt more warlike. I feel like this was a good representation of where Gabrielle is now. Where you have some
She's
of
a
the
lizard
innocence,
person.
some of the goodness, but also this toughness. Yeah. And Katie, you were saying about the use of the lizard scales, that lizards shed their skin like a snake. So there too, that's a potent symbol of renewal and rebirth.
Exactly. And then there's also, I feel like there was some interpretation about it being like scales of justice
Or of music.
But I'm not sure
Scales of
that
music.
I'm not sure that. Oh yeah, I'm not sure that that's her role here at all. So
Yeah, I don't think so.
But just this is probably one of my favorite scenes in the episode because it's just such a simple use of sound design to convey the point, which is that, you know, they are blaming each other for these horrible things that have happened that has caused them to get to this point where they just hate each other. And when they are yelling at each other, everything starts to echo. And the echoes are just this symbol of, number one, this like dissonance between them. And then number two, just the fact that they're not listening to each other and they can't hear each other in this fight. They just go out of their way to point blame. So it's in this moment that Xena realizes the echoes are being caused by them only talking about the past. So Xena asks Gabrielle, how do you feel right now?
This is such therapeutic conversation too.
Exactly. And Gabrielle's follow-up is, I hurt inside.
Which
And
to me
it's just-
reminded me of what she says at the end of The Deliverer.
Yeah.
It
Everything's changed.
No,
yeah,
it
and
hurts inside.
Yeah, it hurts
Yeah.
inside. Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting to remind Xena of the pain that Gabrielle had been through there in that moment, which was also in the ruins of a temple. So I feel like this is a return in some ways to the end of The Deliverer.
And not just for Gabrielle, but Gabrielle then also asks Xena, like, don't you?
you.
So this is the song Hearts Are Hurting, part one. Which thus means that it will be reprised later, very musical of it. And in the song, you get all these accusations between Xena and Gabrielle. And it brings it back to basically everything that has caused the rift. Xena accusing Gabrielle of killing Solon, or it being her fault based on not doing a bunch of things. Obviously, she didn't do it herself. And then Gabrielle brings it all the way back to Britannia and the stuff that happened there with Xena not really paying attention to her. And, you know, she's like, if only you had never brought me there, none of this would have happened in the first place.
It should be noted that we're about 30 minutes into the episode, and this is the first time that Xena and Gabrielle sing. And I love the kind of deferred gratification of that. In a way, it's a huge compliment to Lucy. I think if you're just a casual viewer coming in being like, oh yeah, I want to hear their singing voices, like they make you wait, and Lucy's is worth the wait.
Yes.
Her sultry jazz voice.
But take it away, Broadway Gabs.
Broadway
Oh my
Gabs.
God,
I do
Broadway
call her
Gabs.
Broadway Gabs. Her, the person who sings for her is a singer named Susan Wood, who has a beautiful voice. Nothing wrong with her voice whatsoever.
It just sounds nothing like Renee O'Connor.
It does not really sound like Renee, and it doesn't have that seamless quality that the Callisto performance had. It just does feel very Broadway.
And in a way, I almost feel, I mean, it doesn't make Lucy sound bad, but Lucy's voice has a wonderful unpolished quality, like a roughness that I think is very Xena. And it contrasts strangely to me with the super slick Broadway voice.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's like a little higher and just weird. Renee lip singing it is amazing.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's seamless.
like that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Is like you're not supposed to like notice the lady. I think. You know,
And
doing the
I'll
voice.
admit that when I first watched this, I thought it could have been Renee. I didn't know any better, and I was like, "Well,
I mean,
she's
some people sound
singing
crazy.
her heart
yeah.
out."
Some people
Yeah.
sound totally
Yeah.
different when they sing. So
Totally. And speaking of just how good their performances are in the scene, in one of the coffee talks, there is a great factoid about one of the lyrics. And so there's the lyric that Zena sings, "It's you who should feel guilty. Because of you, my child is dead. His blood is on your hands." But in order to get a particularly high-level performance out of Renee, Lucy changed it.
To be about her own daughter?
Yeah, so she changed the lyrics to "Her blood is on your hands," which is pretty intense.
Guys, actors are nuts.
I just love these little tidbits about what actors do for each other to create what you see on the screen. So you see, like, Renee's face, like, there's just so much emotion in Gabrielle, and this is her reacting to Lucy changing the lyric to be just one of the most awful things you can think of. It's so... I don't understand actors, but I love that they do this stuff just to get their faces to do the right thing.
It's also very funny to watch this bit in the coffee talk because Renee seems a little uncomfortable with the story, whereas Lucy is so gleeful and proud of having done this. She's just like, yeah, I used my own daughter's death to motivate a scene.
So they're clearly had a very amazing working relationship to be able to do stuff like that.
And to be so emotionally vulnerable, both of them.
And it's how you can carry a episode of television like this. Because without that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it would be so easy with all of this intense CGI and production design and costume design. It's so fanciful. It could easily lose the emotional weight because you're so busy looking at all this stuff. So a moment like this where, you know, like I hurt inside and then this beautiful song, like it really recenters you in the story. You say, oh, like the rift. Yeah. My two faves aren't friends anymore. Yeah. And even here, they're still hating on each other.
Yeah, we've mentioned this before, but it bears repeating, especially in something as grand scale and operatic as this, without actors grounding the material to let you really feel the emotional weight of what's going on, then it's not going to work. So yay to Lucy, yay to Renee, even though she's not singing.
Should also mention that the choreography of this scene, there are lines and lines of columns, so you have both Renee and Lucy separated by these various geometric lines, and at the end of the scene they finally come together, but it's not into a reunion, it's into an actual direct oppositional conflict. So some nice, just, you know, a low-key way of showing you like where these characters are emotionally in relation to each other.
Yeah, they're in profile when they come face to face and they're yelling so much at each other, it's your fault, that it explodes the wheel and suddenly...
Into fire.
Yes, suddenly fire.
Callisto's element and also somebody else's element, the big D.
Jesus.
Yep, the D. The D's back.
Very bad.
Dayhawk, that is. You hear the intense Dayhawk music immediately, the satanic.
You're right, yeah, the living stuff.
Yeah.
Jerry Goldsmith. Mm-hmm. Gabrielle freaks out because there's this arm of fire that comes out and grabs her, just as it did in The Deliverer. We've talked about the importance of following up in a rape storyline with what a survivor goes through. Here is a full PTSD flashback. And
she screams, no, not again.
I think it's really important that Zena went there, even at this point in the writer's room, not everyone agreed that this was a rape. This to me reads very much like trauma.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And she's screaming for Zena to help her. Zena tries. She really grabs on, and the fire also snatches her. And both of them go into the wheel and are transported. They emerge in the Dayhawk Temple.
Yes.
Straight out of The Deliverer, which Elise Sassoon also directed. So that's kind of a nice bit of continuity here.
Gabrielle is on the altar, and her hands are covered in blood. And she just whispers, not here.
The patented soft voice.
Yeah, patented soft voice. It's a kind of a reiteration of what she was just screaming, like, not again, and tries to leave the scene.
Yeah, she says, I can't.
Yeah, which it's very heartbreaking. And this is, I think, where Zena is actually like, this, everything is a torment. And has, again, very Xena-esque, putting things together, has figured out that they need to move through this universe together.
Yeah, and has had this, protective instinct again for Gabrielle. She tried to save her from Dayhawk and ended up getting sucked in herself.
Yeah.
So finally, I think Xena has really been shaken into her full awareness of what Gabrielle means to her and what needs to happen. Even if she hasn't consciously forgiven her, she's kind of relapsed. Relapse seems like a weird word.
Yeah, that's not quite the word, because
she snapped back into who she really is.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of like mummy sarcophaguses standing up, and then there's one big one kind of like adjacent to the altar, and that one opens up and like a Dementor flies out.
It is a straight up Dementor.
And actually, fun side reference, which I would never have thought of on my own, but it is a mild, I feel like, reference to the Peter Jackson 1996 New Zealand horror movie, The Frighteners, which had
you're right.
those in it.
Oh
Yeah,
man,
no, this is so The Frighteners.
So like keep it in the
I wrote down in my
family.
notes just horror movie ? And yeah, that is the exact horror movie that I think is the reference.
Yeah.
And it has there's a lightness to it. Like it's a little goofy, it's a little fun, like this floating Dementor with the trumpet face.
The
Yeah, it
trumpet
makes-
face is quite
it
a
makes
thing.
the trumpet.
I could have done without the trumpet
Yeah.
face.
There is a trumpet on the judgment card.
But it's an
for
actual
tarot.
trumpet that this like
Yeah,
angelic
the
like
angel
finger
Gabriel.
is doing.
Yeah.
This is a trumpet out of the hood.
Well, I think people, when they tarotize this episode, they combine the judgment card with the devil card, and that creates Dementor with a trumpet face.
That makes sense. There
So
was
there
an
you go.
original draft of the story that kind of had this hate shadow Dementor business following Xena throughout. That I would, spoilers, have always been Ming Tian.
That's good.
But that was
Xena's
not
guilty
done,
secret.
obviously.
Cut for time.
Yeah. This episode had enough going
Oh
on.
my god,
Yeah,
so much
really
going on.
did.
So the other like mummy sarcophagus is open, and out come more hooded figures.
There are 6 in total, right? Vera's counting
1, 2,
feverishly.
3, 4. I have 4.
Well, there are 4 who then unhood themselves. We have Craftstar, Callisto, Caesar, and Ares.
Villain
and then
All-Stars.
2 mysterious, still
okay.
hooded ones.
Yes.
Yeah, so our villain all-stars, and props to everybody for getting both Martone and Carl Urban in just for the sequence.
Yeah, just for the one scene.
This is
Yeah.
so, I mean, it really rounds out the episode, I think, and that these are obviously the Caesar and Craftstar, respectively, are embodiments of Xena and Gabrielle's trauma.
Yes.
So we need them here in this hate song.
Yeah. And I know this episode has so much, but like I do kind of wish that there was more with those guys. Specifically because look, they got him here. They're in this episode. Do more, please.
I'm not even sure they were on the set. It was done so quick that, like, I feel like they just were like, quick, okay, Carl, stand over here against this dark wall, wear the suit. They got him in.
They got him before lunch.
That is what's impressive.
He was on his way to the cafeteria.
So they sing this song that to me feels very, like, Disney villain
Yes.
song.
Despite the fact that Joe LaDuca was like, I did not want it to sound Disney.
Like Disney.
It does have a Disney quality. Although I did read this thing about how he really does not have much experience
With
or knowledge
musicals
with
at all.
musical theater, which is interesting because I feel like you then have his just kind of awesome mixed bag of pulling from all these different places for all of the music. So it can sound like that. And I always also feel like it's interesting because people have, as we have mentioned of our own selves, various degrees of knowledge about musical theater. So the music is just going to kind of always remind you of some music that you know and not maybe what it's actually doing. But yeah.
So what you're saying is that I know a lot of Disney villain songs. I do. It's true.
like, and a lot of people reference, you know, something like a Les Mis type musical for this, which is a very, you know, big, you know, operatic.
Lyrical,
It's not operatic, but like, well, has all sorts of stuff going on in it. Like, and I listening to it was like, it has like a Miss Saigon quality sometimes, which is the same, you know, Schoenberg and Blue Beetle quality. So I'm like, that for me, I'm like, it's kind of like that stuff, but there's so much going on. And yeah, definitely, this is Disney villain.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
heard Disney villains.
It
Like
doesn't
I
have
almost
really,
want to apologize.
yeah.
That's not anything to be like. I feel like when he says that, like he didn't want to sound Disney. Like he's saying it like that would be a bad thing, but it's not a bad thing whatsoever. The Disney music is wonderful.
And villain songs just have such a great like sound quality, this sort of threatening, but they're very charismatic. Like they work for, I mean, this is meant to be, the voice of Satan. And like that to me is perfect. That sense of kind of charm, but also being very sinister. So yeah. Disney villain. Own it.
Yeah.
I thought that the most important part of this whole scene was the fact that Gabrielle gets strapped to the altar and Xena gets put back up on the cross.
Yeah, these two hugely significant dramatic moments for them.
And really the beginning of a real crisis, a spiritual crisis for them. For Xena, that was when she chose death, as she says in Destiny. Like that was the moment when she went from being just a person who is a warlord to this kind of like total chaotic, violent person. And for Gabrielle, her experience in The Deliverer, was the beginning of a long series of lies that culminated in Zolan's death.
Mm-hmm. Specifically because both Craftstar and Caesar are here, like I just can't help but like the first and foremost thing for me is the rape stuff, like the fact that Gabrielle is here with him again and that it shouldn't diminish how important Caesar was to Xena. Like to me, that moment on the cross, I know it represents what you just said about her choosing death and like going from warlord to this killer, but it also shouldn't diminish how important Caesar was in her life and shaped her. And because of that, she took Gabrielle to Britannia, and it shouldn't be overlooked.
Yeah.
Like, it shouldn't just be like, well, he shouldn't have been chasing after Caesar. Like, that was a huge moment for her and is just as important to her as Craftstar is to Gabrielle.
Yeah, and for both of them to heal, they have to confront these villains. And I mean, in a way, that's what Xena was trying to do in Britannia. Like, it's interesting how often Britannia is reframed as being this bad thing. Like, Xena shouldn't have gone there.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Xena was trying to destroy Caesar, who is a threat. As much as she's judged for it, it's not like good didn't also happen because of her decision there.
Did it? It didn't do anything.
Didn't Boadicea defeat Caesar with her help?
But it's not even that. It's just kind of make Caesar small into a personal story between Xena and Caesar. She got rid of him, I think, yeah.
Yeah,
You're talking
she
about
routed
Boadicea?
him. It's mentioned a few, you obviously don't see it on screen, but it's mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But
He was
anyway,
made small.
he was. Yes, he was.
But then again, I mean, that whole rhetoric of making people small, this is a thing that both is laudable in Xena and her worst instinct, in the same way that Gabrielle believing in people's goodness is laudable, but then can become her worst instinct in the wrong situation. So Xena wanting to confront her pain and exact retribution, obviously, can be a very bad thing.
Mm-hmm. So in the midst of the Disney villain song, Xena, again, piecing together stuff, realizes and tells Gabrielle that it's hatred that they're fighting. Fairly overt, considering the song is called Hate is the Star.
As we recall, Gabrielle's line at the beginning of the episode, I hate you!
Yeah, it's a devastating line to hear come out of her mouth. Yeah. Right after this moment, you have the reveal of the last two sarcophaguses, contain an evil Xena and an evil Gabrielle, which you can tell they're evil because they're wearing black contacts.
Oh, always.
Yeah.
Evil Gabrielle has a mallet, and she advances on Xena to break her legs, a la Xena's
trauma.
a la Caesar's henchman. Meanwhile, evil Xena has the knife from Dayhawk's temple and is advancing towards Gabrielle on the altar.
Yeah, and the song kind of culminates. These ladies do their respective swings. And I love that as Xena is getting her, legs broken, she screams out Gabrielle because Gabrielle's getting stabbed. Like that's who she's
really afraid for Gabrielle. Gabrielle can't see her, but she can see Gabrielle, which feels very meaningful for staging. I think it's Xena at this point who needs the most kind of reminders in terms of what Gabrielle means to her. So, yeah.
Yeah. I don't also want to point out while we're on the scene that, like, I think that when we talk about Gabrielle's PTSD from the Dayhawk rape stuff, it's totally there. But I feel like the episode, because the production staff wasn't really 100% saying that it was a rape, that we should not move on from here without saying, like, you know, we mentioned her bloody hands, but, like, now you have Xena with Dayhawk's knife, and, like, the big thing that I feel like the episode wants to talk about is Gabrielle's, like, blood innocence.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
the other stuff
Equating
is
the rape
there.
and the blood innocence
I don't
is
think the other stuff
not
is
good.
not there. It's just maybe less intentional on the part of the writing. I don't know.
I think
I
it's
wish
one of
there
those
was more of
things,
it,
you know,
yeah.
they're engaging in all these various forms of symbolic language.
Right.
And often, you know, unintentional meanings sneak into that.
Exactly.
So I think they do Dayhawk again in various ways, not understanding that various aspects of Dayhawk correspond to different traumas for Gabrielle. Her blood innocence versus her rape are two different
But when you
moments
have
in the
her
character's
laying on
journey.
the altar in the same position she was when she was raped by Dayhawk, like, you can't help but equate not only that, but what I keep trying to really badly, like, vocalize, which is Xena on the cross, is exactly that. Like, that is her rape, like, by Caesar. And that's why I wish that, it's not like an actual one, but, like, it's a metaphorical one for sure. Like, that is her at her most helpless. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, these two actors are maybe there. Maybe they're going to lunch and having the hood put on them. But I wish that they expressed that a little bit more by having maybe, like, let's say Craftstar and Caesar
With the dagger.
you start that way, and then they do some kind of, like, whoosh, and it's like Xena and Gabrielle respectively, you know, like something like that.
Well, I like that it's Xena and Gabrielle who are the stand-ins for evil, because in the end you need to bring it back to the rift itself, which is you have to move out past the past to the future, and that's a future in which they can be together, and that means acknowledging the damage that they've done to each other. That in the end is the most pressing problem facing these two characters.
This might be a super tangent for this moment, but having mentioned the rift just now, one of my favorite quotes that I came across in researching this episode was someone asking Steve Sears when he thought the rift started.
Ooh.
And he said, "Sins of the past."
What?
I think he's right.
And I think he's right also. This is always going to have been, I think it is a great answer because it kind of sets up the fact that, you know, this might be the end of the rift as we know it in this episode, or as it's defined by this series of episodes, but, like, the ideological rift between the two of them that's there since the beginning is always going to have come to a head, and it will continue to be explored throughout the rest of the show. Hey.
Yeah, and it's a reminder that the rift isn't a set of external circumstances imposed on the two characters. The rift comes from within. It comes from the fact that they are these two different people who still have very different views about things. And as we've said before, sometimes that's such a strength. They can keep each other honest, but sometimes it leads to communications breakdowns and dishonesty.
But right now, we're not at a communication breakdown.
No!
We're at a communication harmonizing
Let the healing begin. So we have Xena still up on the cross and Gabrielle strapped to that altar. Did you want to mention their costumes, Liv?
Well, I really love that during this scene, Gabrielle has returned to her standard costume, the bilious green sports bra. And I think here it kind of stands in for her trauma. She's kind of returning to that place where she was in the Deliverer. But it also signifies to me the end, in some ways, of this role-playing that was happening in Illusia, where the costumes were so outrageous, and slowly we're getting down to realism. Like even Xena's rags, that's supposed to be a la Destiny.
Yeah.
But there too, you feel like you're not really seeing like those bright colors and that sense of it being a costume that the characters are wearing. Like it's back to kind of being their stuff, which I think is a sign that we're kind of getting closer to the emotional truth of Illusia.
For sure. The evil Xena and Gabrielle did their respective violence upon our real Xena and Gabrielle. So the legs are broken, metaphorically, and the stabbing happens. And I feel like the moment that Xena screamed Gabrielle and was more worried about Gabrielle than herself was when she let go, which is what she's been kind of led to do throughout this whole episode. And they start singing the reprise, right, of...
Hearts Are Hurting, part 2.
In the first version of Hearts Are Hurting, you had them singing these two different stanzas of the song. First, Xena sang, then Broadway Gabs did the honors. And what was interesting about those two different stanzas, to me, was that they were actually just like basically singing the same thing. I hurt, I blame you, everything that happened to me is your fault. They're both singing these things. Like they basically are singing the same song, but they don't really know it. And then here...
They can't hear each other, the echoes.
Right, the Hall of Echoes kind of is there in that song. But here... they're each singing a single verse back and forth, back and forth. They're actually singing the same song. Even before they harmonize, they sort of realize, like, what I'm singing is what you're singing. They're listening to each other. You have to be able to listen to each other in order to sing one verse and then the other like that.
It's so beautiful.
It's so emotional. I'm getting all like teary, just like anticipating the moment when that harmony kicks in.
And this is why this is a musical, because... like everyone involved in writing this show was saying, we wanted to do this episode as a musical because sitting around listening to them hash out this problem in words would have been just... I don't know if it would be watchable, to be honest.
It would be kind of impossible, too, because what do you say in the end? It's so...
Oh, my God, this is what Emmys are made for, you guys.
I mean, like, sure, I would love the, like, gritty version where they're just... neither of them has any makeup on, and they're sitting in a kitchen.
There's, like, tears, possibly there's snot. Ew, it's just so good. Like, all the Emmys just are thrown at them.
I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't watch that, or that it wouldn't have been, like, acting... like extravaganza, but I just think that this is the moment that's just so beautiful in this episode, and you have this answer to their echoey fight in this beautiful harmony. You can, even if you didn't know what they were saying, this is why music is universal. It's, you understand you feel emotionally that this is them coming back together, and it's like, ugh, it's good.
It's so good.
It's really good. To me, the Buffy equivalent of this, which I don't think matches this, I think it's a good idea, but it doesn't have the emotional power of this, is when Buffy sings I Was in Heaven, and it's in the minor key, the word heaven. Yeah, I can't sing.
That was good. It's a minor key. It's it's
really
supposed to sound weird.
So, I mean, that's kind of the opposite of what this is doing there. It's using kind of unpretty music to get across an unpretty idea. And here in Xena, they're using just, one of the most beautiful things you can do in music, which is to take two different sounding voices and put them together, and it's greater than the sum of its parts, which is, of course, an amazing symbol for Xena and Gabrielle's relationship in general. And what just harmony is a kind of mystical thing. It's what you hear in church. It raises the back, the hairs on the back of your neck. There's just nothing more emotional and beautiful.
Yeah, it was so good that it made all the Dementors explode.
They poofed.
I thought it was really interesting that Callisto Dementor poofed first.
Right. But she revealed herself first, too.
She did reveal herself first. That's true. Do they poof in the order?
I didn't notice that, but I did notice Caesar, or Carl Urban, how he acted that moment.
How did he act?
It was really funny. So he's kind of just looking at, I think, craft stars to his right. So he's just like looking at him explode. He's like, whoa.
What's that
And then he explodes.
Well, I was wondering if it's somehow like, they explode in the order of their almost like vulnerability.
Oh.
Like Ares is the last to explode, so he's somehow the most intractable in his ways. He's never going to change. But Callisto, we've just seen go through this kind of life-changing moment where she realizes that her whole purpose is wrong. So I feel like her being first to me feels really important.
I like this, yeah. Well, one is still flying around.
Yeah, we're not done yet.
And he's a little bitch, and he's like cackling.
But he kind of backs off for now. As Xena and Gabrielle are freed from their various restraints and chains, like he kind of GTFOs for a little while so that it seems like everything's hunky-dory.
You get this beautiful, warm lighting, a nice waterfall going.
Yeah. Don't go chasing waterfalls. But you should. You should. That's what the message of this episode is.
I loved how Gabrielle was leading Xena as if her legs actually were busted. Like she was kind of hobbling along towards the waterfall.
That.
It was really cool.
Well, Xena, I feel like as soon as she sees that waterfall, she seems really hesitant about it. She's scared of it. I feel like on some level she knows what it means, and she feels
she does not
herself,
like to go chasing waterfalls.
She feels unworthy of it already, just seeing it.
Constant trait.
So the waterfall kind of tableau, I wasn't quite sure exactly which tarot card it symbolizes. I saw people online saying that it's the sun, which is this very pretty, redemptive looking card with a big sun.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
The sun.
Oh, the sun, like the sun with an O. Oh, and there's a little naked baby on the tarot card. So Solon is our little naked baby.
And he's also the sun, because Solon is sun, right? In some language.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's like what Solon means.
Oh, yeah. Oh, here we go. Woo.
That's so good.
We're doing it. We got it.
Oh, man.
So he's here now on the other side of the waterfall. Does this work for you guys in the episode that he literally is the reason Illusia exists? Like, that was how it was written. Chris and Steve, Solon.
Steve seems very attached to the idea in particular. Like, that Solon created
this
Illusia.
World for them. Yeah.
I don't like this at all.
It doesn't come across.
Really weird. I have a feeling that's deliberate. On the final cut, somebody looked at it and said, I don't like Solon being the person who did this. Let's soften this idea as much as we can. I think there's still a line. Gabrielle says something like, oh, it was him.
It was him.
Yeah.
But it's mysterious.
They definitely had to explain.
It was him.
But they had to explain Illusia. Otherwise.
No, you don't have to explain Illusia.
We were there all along, remember?
Right. The whole series takes place in Illusia.
Oh! No, I mean, I just think Illusia is... I mean, what do you guys think Illusia is?
It's a state of mind.
It is a state of mind. I mean, I think it's inside them both. It's not... I just can't imagine, somebody waving a magical wand and being like, it's Illusia now.
I saw stuff comparing it to, the last time Xena was in a kind of death place. She had Malila come as her visitor, and so it was this weird landscape.
Like a dreamscape.
Yes, so you have that kind of parallel where you can have these people who are strongly connected to them come to them and,
But even there, you're not sure if that is a kind of symbolic representation of Malila or Malila herself. It's one of those things where you're like, is this Xena talking to herself via these symbols, or is it an actual dimension where people can kind of mystically commune with each other?
I mean, I have no trouble thinking it's an actual dimension, because there's so much in this show that I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, that's fine. This is fine. They didn't drown because they were in a vortex, and Solon sucked them in, and this is what it is.
Yeah, especially because you have Greek gods and stuff, like Poseidon or whatever.
So why not?
It's literally beside the point.
What about the entirety of Married with Fish Sticks? That's a whole
we'll get
under
there.
the sea business. I'm just saying.
this is an under the sea business, technically.
Yeah.
Also.
So
maybe there are just a lot of different under the sea kingdoms, including Fish Sticks and Illusia. Maybe they're next door neighbors.
Yeah, right next to Ariel.
Anyway. But yeah, I mean, for me, I guess I like the ambiguity. I like being able to look at Illusia and say, it could be this or it could be this. When does it start? When does it end? We don't know.
Time doesn't matter.
I definitely don't think the idea that Solon himself would want this for them, I don't know. I don't quite.
I don't
see
think
that.
Solon knows about their relationship enough to do
Yeah.
this
Well,
whole thing.
Well,
He's
you know,
dead
it's
now,
a way of
so he
forgiving.
can
Oh,
hear
so he can hear
thoughts.
all their thoughts about how they're like
Right.
want to bang each other every second. Oops.
Should be like,
I mean, I guess there is something nice.
Oh my gosh.
Something nice in the idea that like her son from you know beyond the grave can come back and say, I don't blame you, and I don't blame you, and I love you both, and I want you to be
Yeah.
together, and this is how I
Okay.
can
That's
give
nice.
you
Yeah.
that. But at the same time, I don't know. I want it to just kind of have happened.
Yes, I
Yeah.
agree. I don't need
I
an
think you could
The
do
explanation.
that, yeah.
universe needed it. The universe
Yeah.
needed Xena and Gabrielle to make peace.
Right.
That's how I like to see it. I feel like ascribing it to any one person is lessening it somehow.
So Gabrielle runs right through that waterfall. She kind of like skips into it. Is very excited to see Solon.
She goes chasing waterfalls.
She does. And, Xena tries to follow her. Once her hand gets into the water, it burns.
It burns us. It freezes.
oh my goodness. So like water and purity, all
Yeah.
that jazz.
Baptism.
Holy water against
And water,
devils.
we've had
Sin is a
all of
vampire.
this discussion of water throughout the episode from the Book of Tokens, all the
Mm-hmm.
stuff about how it's a symbol of rebirth and renewal, and that was from the letter M, which, as we know, is associated with the tarot card for death.
Yes.
So I think it is interesting that this water here that now separates Gabrielle and Xena is both sinister and redemptive.
Yeah.
Like for Xena, it's something she can't pass through, and for Gabrielle, it's just like, skip, I'm through it, and my hair's so fluffy now.
The Dementor comes back, and he's cackling away.
Good impression.
He is annoying.
Well, alive and as a Dementor.
Alive and yeah.
Yes, it's revealed that this is Ming Qian.
And this is the last secret that Xena's been keeping. That's why she can't pass through the waterfall, because there's still one thing that hasn't been brought to light, and hence the rift ain't healed. yet.
Indeed. We will pin Gabs running through it with no problems for a few episodes down the line.
She does have a secret herself. But okay.
Anyway,
Whatever.
people tend to point that out.
Oh.
That it's actually, yeah. They should both be burned. Nobody can get through this waterfall.
But this is the real big one. This is like,
yeah.
this is
I killed a dude
Yeah.
is worse than
Yeah.
what Gabrielle did in the
yeah,
end.
I think so too.
Yeah.
In China, you're talking about
Yeah.
specifically? Because,
Yeah.
like, everything else that Gabrielle did is way worse than anything Xena did. And I'm sticking to that.
So you actually don't think do you feel like Gabrielle needed to sing and Please Forgive Me songs?
I think it's really fascinating. And sure, we can go into this right now. This episode, in my opinion, is for sure more about Xena than Gabrielle, because it is a harder ask for Xena to forgive Gabrielle, because what Gabrielle did is so much worse than anything that like Xena did, specifically to Gabrielle. It is.
Can be okay.
It is.
Oh no,
Okay.
it's a rift
I feel
about
like-
to erupt in Xena Warrior podcast.
Her lying about killing Ming Tian is not the same as Gabrielle lying about not killing Hope, which leads to the death of Xena's son. Like
That's that.
It is, because Ming Tian has nothing to do with actual Gabrielle. That's like just Xena's other stuff.
But Gabrielle felt so strongly that Xena killing Ming Tian was Xena throwing away so much of the progress that she made with Gabrielle and so much of their life together over the course of their friendship.
Yeah, but those are like me statements. Like,
Yeah.
you're hurting
You don't
me
think
here,
that-
Xena, because what I've done for you is
Yeah.
like being thrown away. Like, it's.
You feel that was actually selfish on Gabrielle's part?
I love that's an aspect of Gabrielle. I already said that anytime she's petty, I am just like so there for it because it's so human. But I think that her hiding Hope and just everything leading to Solon's death is just, she is right to be constantly upset but also guilty. Like, that's Gabrielle in this episode. Xena has she's the one who needs to take the biggest step in forgiving Gabrielle. And once she forgives Gabrielle, that Gabrielle's like, oh my God, phew, like, yeah, you're forgiven too, bitch. Like, totally. I think that it's really interesting that everything culminates kind of in what Lao Ma was trying to teach her in The Debt. So the things that she couldn't do in the debt, like let go of her hatred for, let's say, Boreas or for Ming-Tzu, the reason why she loses her powers and stuff like that, like she does here. Like she takes the higher road and lets go, like forgives Gabrielle, who did like such huge harm to her and who she was so angry at, which I think is really fascinating.
Yeah, I do think it's much like, I mean, this is something that I felt even in Maternal Instincts. Like immediately Gabrielle apologizes and takes responsibility by killing Hope.
Yeah.
Like these are huge steps that Gabrielle made almost immediately. Whereas I don't think Xena is very good at taking ownership of her own mistakes. Like she's someone who she needs a lot more help to say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like that does not come naturally to her. She really, like a floodgate has to open before she can really go there.
Yeah.
And it's about to.
A floodgate of songs.
A floodgate of sorries. Yeah.
So she screams at Ming Tian floating around there, and I loved how she's like, I killed him, and then just
I killed him, you bastard.
Oh, no, I killed you, you bastard.
Oh, sorry.
Like
Yeah,
it
it makes
goes
more sense grammatically.
just because like that hatred is just still so there.
Yeah.
Like,
she is not
she's
sorry.
just, ugh.
It's such a sorry, not sorry. She's like,
I just
I did it because he's an asshole.
She's not sorry about that, yeah.
No,
she's sorry
she's not
about
sorry.
lying.
Yes.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
sorry about lying.
Yeah. And that's Gabrielle Patton's soft voice, you lied, delivery. And then, of course, Liv's favorite.
This is my favorite moment in the entire episode. I can't even articulate why. To me, there is just something musically about this moment that is just so married to Xena's character. Like, for the most part, I think a lot of the singing, while very beautiful, doesn't to me necessarily reflect how the characters talk in a normal episode.
Okay.
But here in this moment, when Xena says, "Yes, I lied," and it's full of, you know, typical Xena feelings, like her self-loathing, but also defiance, like
And grouchiness.
Like to me, it's just such a Xena line. It's the first line of this beautiful song. You hear the music come in. Lucy kills it with this song. And I think in part because this song is as much an acting performance as it is a musical performance. And I think that to me is why this first moment is so good. Because it's just, it's so Xena. Yes, I lied.
This one was entirely written by Joe LaDuca, the lyrics. And not the lyricists that they brought in. Not saying anything about the other two, they did an amazing job.
Yeah,
but I
awesome
think
job.
that like this one being a little more tied to stuff that you're saying might have something to do with that.
Yeah, I think so. To me, this is definitely my favorite of the songs in the musical, and I do think there is
Spoilers.
There is something
for your favorite songs.
Yeah. But I do think there's just something really elevated about it. Like it just is, it's special. Yeah, and maybe that is the fact that Joe did the lyrics. I half feel like he may have been working on this first. Like this, he got to pay the most attention to.
And the whole episode working to this.
Yeah, this obviously is the climax of the whole thing. It is just a showcase for Lucy Lawless. It's hard to really quibble with that. Like, that is just, we all needed this in our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the song because it is just so simple and it breaks apart so easily, like half being a I'm sorry to Gabrielle, half being and I'm sorry to Solon.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so wonderful in its simplicity.
Okay, I'm counting you guys. I put a little hash mark in my notes for every time she said I'm sorry or forgive me.
Okay.
There are 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 instances of something to the effect of I'm sorry, forgive me, help me. Words we never hear Xena say in the show. And here she just says them 22 times in 3 minutes. I think it's a remarkable
It
song.
was really therapeutic for her.
Yeah.
And I love that she gets on her knees when she's singing to Solon.
And she's dressed in these rags
Yeah.
that make her look kind of like a penitent, you know? She's been stripped away of everything and just kind of, this is all that's left. The sorries.
Yeah.
My favorite part of the lyrics to Gabrielle is the bit where she says, "Forgive me my debt as only you could." And her strategic use of debt, which was such a sore spot in those episodes because she owed a debt to Lao Ma, and Gabrielle didn't really like that. That the debt to Lao Ma outweighed anything Xena owed her, really. So here, Zena is basically saying the opposite, and it's the one line that Gabrielle really reacts to. Gabrielle's like, "Yes, I won! Better than Lao Ma! Thank you, Zena!"
Oh my goodness. That is a very great reaction face. I
Yeah.
can see it right now.
Yeah. And so she's like, forgive me and you'll be able to forgive yourself too, which, you know.
Is such an important sentiment here. And yeah, I think it's the only way that the rift could be healed is actually, you know, the fact that Xena has to look inside and sort of see, like that's such a big part of forgiveness is kind of understanding what you yourself have done wrong.
Yeah. Liv, you have a take on the final line.
Yeah, I mean, that
Of
seems
the
to be a
song.
controversial line among the fandom.
It's a slightly, I find, it's oddly phrased.
The
to
love
me.
of your love is you.
Yeah.
We saw a Joe LoDuca explanation of it, which was just baffling.
Well, he had said that it's like the opposite of the phrase, the enemy of my enemy is me, which is not a saying. I know the enemy of my enemy is my
But
friend.
isn't it really that you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're like forgiving
guess.
yourself, really? Like that's the whole point of
Well,
it?
That is my take on
Yeah.
it. There's this
Yes.
wonderful idea that's often expressed in Shakespeare's sonnets, and I think was a very common idea in the Renaissance, in Renaissance love poetry, that if you look into the eye of your beloved, you see yourself. You see a reflection of yourself. So it is this kind of, like, it's like a different kind of hall of echoes. It's these many layers of reflections, and like that is like what you love about a person, but also like what they love about you. So the love of your love is you is saying like you have to see yourself in somebody's eyes, and like by seeing yourself, like you see them finally.
It's really intense.
It is really intense.
I mean, it's intense, like, to wrap your head around it.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's very, like, metaphysical.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
But I'm sure everybody
like
in the
everything
fandom
else.
just wants it straight out to be, like, the person I love is you. And I think that's there, too, as well. Yeah.
Right, because it's the love of your love. Wait.
See,
No, it's too hard
it's
for
a rough
me.
line.
The person you love loves who? You!
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's all there. I love how mysterious it is. And I think that's another reason this song is superior in my eyes. Is that it has some like tasty ambiguity. It's not quite clear in places what it's really about. But you do feel that that's so perfect for Zena and Gabrielle's love, which is a love that, is often hard to define. Like it kind of goes beyond these qualifiers. It just is.
Well, it works. And
Yay.
Gabrielle, in what I think is the greatest moment of this entire episode, is able to pull her through that waterfall.
Right, I love that Zena even now can't step through. Gabrielle pulls her.
Yeah.
Gabrielle reaches, and it's such the ultimate act of forgiveness,
Yes.
that reaching, like the literal like reaching
Yeah.
over this divide.
Yeah, and how she brings her in, Zena's costume change into the warrior princess, classic
She's back
look.
to herself. Yeah.
Yes, and it's like the most romantic Hollywood moment.
It really is. The
Like the
camera
staging
spins
of it,
around
yeah.
them.
It's also great.
They're grabbing
'cause
each other.
You cut to Ming
Tall,
Tian
small.
going like, no, no, and to me that's so symbolic. That's like the patriarchy being like, no, you two women, you're not allowed to be together. No.
Well, then he explodes.
But then
by-
he explodes.
Yeah.
I do like Lucy and Renee in the commentary over this scene are like, let's get married. It was just really
Cuddle time.
It was cute. Oh yeah,
It's such
time for
a
a cuddle.
like
Yeah.
swoony moment.
It really is.
It's gorgeous.
The light is so golden, and it just gets me that shot of their linked hands through the water.
It's just so classical, like Hollywood imagery. That's like I can't get over it.
Yeah. This also, I'm not sure exactly about the imagery here, but it kind of is like the lover's card in tarot,
hells,
which
yeah.
depicts two naked figures kind of separated but reaching towards each other.
It's that.
Looking at those cards just right now, obviously it's been this way the whole time, but really the color scheme of the whole episode
It is literally
this deck.
All the yellow and green and red, yeah.
Oh yeah, BT dubs, guys. We've been looking at an actual tarot deck this whole time.
Yeah.
Because we're witches.
Yeah.
And we own a tarot deck by happenstance.
The correct one
Yeah.
for the...
Yeah, the Rider-Waite
program.
Tarot. And I definitely recommend watching the episode with the cards in front of you because you really do. Yeah, it's like a storyboard for the entire episode.
To clarify, we have this deck because one time we were obsessed with Carnival.
Yeah.
Carnival has the most awesome title sequence, you guys. It's totally inspired by tarot. It's got awesome music over it, too. It's not the greatest show in the world.
But it has Clancy Brown, who is from Earth, too.
That's true.
Also Mr. Grabs on SpongeBob.
He's really good at it. It's a good show. If you're not aware of it, you should totally check it out.
Yeah, and if you're into Twin Peaks right now, you should definitely check it out.
Yeah, it had such a creative hard-on for Twin Peaks.
Yeah, but I
back in
feel
the
like
day.
current Twin Peaks is
Even
doing
more.
a lot of stuff that it was doing because everything is in Ouroboros.
Sorry, I had another brain thing where it kind of also reminds me of the yoga episode. And like the artist that...
Oh, yeah. Well,
Rob
we'll get there.
likes.
There's an artist
Yeah.
that Rob
It
really...
might have been inspired here as well.
That's cool. I
Just
didn't
the
know
color.
about this.
Just the color scheme.
Yeah, I definitely see some visual similarities.
Put a
between,
pin in it.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
Paradise Found
Yeah.
and Bittersweet. And of course, Paradise Found is Rob directed, and
Yeah.
Rob wanted to direct this and basically designed
Yeah.
the production design for
Anyway.
this.
Anyway,
Let's get back
tangent.
to it, guys. This episode's not over yet.
No.
Yeah. Oh my God. Still a
Yes,
ways to go.
Xena's reunited with Solon, and she gives him a big old hug, and it's very nice and cathartic. And
And
then
he calls her mom.
Yeah, and it's really good. Yeah.
She gets this moment of being his mom
Yeah.
finally, and nobody's in pain, nobody's dead. It's just
It
a
goes slightly
sweet
slow mo
moment.
too, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
To progress it.
And I like that Gabrielle kind of steps aside and gives them that moment.
Yeah.
Like she's
And she
really
has a
classy.
very, it's another great reaction shot on her face because I feel like you can see 700 different layers going on. Just obviously this happiness, but again, some sadness for herself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have a similar moment. You know, Xena gets this at the
Yeah.
end. She's gone through this long dark night of the soul, and as a reward, she gets one more moment with her child. Gabrielle does not get that.
Right.
She leaves Illusia a little bit unsatisfied, maybe.
I don't know. They leave
She gets her
Illusia
friend back.
by switching Solon into Gabrielle.
Oh my God,
Yes,
so
here's
what a
my
weird
question.
cut. Yeah.
Is it weird
Is it weird?
that Solon turns into Gabs? Question mark.
It's a little
It's a
weird.
little odd.
Yeah, very strange. I understand that that's the best place to be, which is hugging Lucy Lawless with your head on her bosom. Like, I
Sure.
get that, but it is weird that it went from this is her son to now this is Gabrielle, the
Yeah.
love of your love.
So now
is
they're
you.
like at
Kind of
the
edible,
bottom.
I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very odd.
They're at the bottom of the cliff, assumingly, where they fell,
Yeah.
sort of, but it's like a
Maybe.
different beach.
I mean,
'cause
you
it's
never see any
low tide?
waterfall or
No.
anything.
I don't know.
This is what I mean about that being Illusia to begin with, because it just doesn't match spatially with what you're seeing here at the end.
It's
They
so
were in Illusia
strange.
the
I
whole
think-
time, you guys.
No way.
No, but I kind of agree with that assessment. I
What
forget who said
assessment?
it.
Oh.
That like they didn't know how to end the episode.
Yeah, I think it was in the commentary. The gals said it.
That
Yeah.
Lucy and Renee said it.
They literally frolic in some seaweed on that beach
Well,
as the waves
So like,
are
firstly,
hitting them.
the dialogue is nice.
We're home.
We're home at last.
At last,
Yeah.
because they've been in Illusia the
No,
whole
no, no.
time.
Um,
But it's also, it's not about being anywhere. It's about being with each other.
Yeah,
Home is
exactly.
with each other.
which is lovely. And then the tide rolls in. Well, my favorite thing about the splashing around in the seaweed is when Renee flops backwards. There's no tide yet, so it's just the sand. Really,
It's
it's really funny.
It's really awkward.
The behind the scenes photos are adorable. Yeah, it seems like everyone's so happy. It should be, and we know they love splashing. It's a favorite pastime of theirs.
True. This is
of course,
almost
now
like being in a hot tub.
Exactly, and they can splash each other again. Finally,
Just happily splash.
it's just a little strange.
Yeah.
It's cute as fuck, but it's like, what the hell's that?
It's also meant to resemble a tarot card, the World, which features a naked figure surrounded by a wreath, as if the seaweed.
So that's why it's
I
a
think
circle.
it's still combined with the lovers because the sunset that they do over the horizon is exactly like
the sunset
lovers.
from the lovers.
So the seaweed makes the circle that's the wreath on the
Okay, great. I'm
And,
glad
you
there's an
know,
explanation for this fucking series.
circles, the chakram,
Yeah, of course.
vagina,
Right,
but
right.
also like, a circle complete, the circle of life, death, renewal, rebirth,
Right.
Yeah.
tarot imagery.
Amazing.
It's beautiful. No, I love all that layer of it. If you want to know more about everything tarot, more than what
we've
we
done
said.
such a good explanation.
I mean, yeah,
It's just
we
like
killed it. We
there's
crushed it.
essay upon essay about this episode and tarot, so go check those out on the Google.
For me, what's most important about just the use of tarot is just the fact that it has all of these cool associations. Like I saw a description of it as being about the stages of life. So for the bittersweet, like this is a life stage. Like the rift is an important aspect of Xena and Gabrielle's relationship. And by undergoing this almost like alchemic process, they their friendship is turned to gold.
Nice.
They undergo this thing and come out stronger for it in the same way that going through any really hard thing in life kind of shoots you forward into a new stage.
I think one thing was left unsaid, and maybe they could have tacked it on at the end there because they didn't know how to end it.
Yes,
one more
Vera.
song,
Yeah,
guys.
one more song, one more for the road.
And by the way,
You used my scrolls as toilet paper. That one time you had no respect for my writing. How could you? It really, it's just like a festering wound between
it's
them.
really left unsaid.
And
yeah.
it's gonna explode one day. Just one day, they're gonna be like
the Rift Part 2, entirely based
they just
on
didn't
this.
hash it all out.
Yeah, like forget about all that stuff with like Xena taking Gabrielle for granted, thinking she couldn't get into her own problems up in Britannia. Forget all that.
No.
The scrolls.
The
man.
scrolls.
Yeah.
It was the beginning of the end.
That's when the Rift started, guys.
Yeah, come on, Steve.
So we know Olivia's favorite song.
Yeah.
What's your favorite song, Beer?
Do you have the titles of them?
There are like 7 big actual originals, right?
You have the correct number. So the first song, which is Callisto's song, is called What's Still Unwritten.
That's my
That's
favorite.
yours. That is yours, huh?
You just love
Yeah.
the craziness of it. I love how it's a little circusy. Like it's
I just
like,
love it. Everything about it is amazing. Also, Callisto's there.
And that's what's stuck in your brain watching it as small, yeah.
I can't unconnect myself from that kind of thing.
I'm just gonna go with the 2 duets, part 1 and 2.
Hearts Are Hurting.
Yeah.
Parts 1 and 2.
Yeah, man.
There's also Joxer the Mighty. Anyone?
Bueller?
War and Peace, which is
Very good.
a really
A
great,
good one, yeah.
memorable
Fun times.
number. It probably wins for best choreography.
Yeah,
It's-
I mean it is pretty silly. It's just like we love peace, we love war,
But
peace,
like
war.
Well, it
It's
was
very-
their big
yeah.
number.
Yeah.
It was
And
the
it
biggest.
very
is
impressive.
very thematically
Of
appropriate.
course, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's not.
And Hate is the Star,
Also great.
our
Also
Disney
fun.
villain song. And then The Love of Your Love.
Did you forget the melt into me, Aries?
Yes, that is not on this list.
Lovely
but
number.
Yes, that is a great number. Good point.
Those are the 2 best songs.
Yeah, Melt Into Me is pretty and so well performed.
That one and the-
Kevin
and the end.
Smith
Yeah.
did such a great job with that.
We should definitely give props to Oli because I'm
Yeah,
pretty
man.
sure he did not have any kind of like musical background,
Oh no,
like in terms of
he
filming.
had tons of music videos.
Oh, music videos. Okay,
And
cool.
I think he had probably in school or something. He mentioned musical theater as a thing he
But
liked.
not like
Not like
not
on
like-
yeah, he didn't do
he
like
wasn't on Broadway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I mean.
music
Yeah.
video.
Or like movies that are
Yeah.
musicals or anything like that. So that's cool.
Yeah, he did a great job.
Yeah.
This is his final episode for Xena.
Yep.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Ollie.
Good
Yeah.
episode.
And I also really loved like the editing in this episode.
So many great shots. So much good stuff. oh man, we could be here for 17 more hours.
Yeah, this is a long one, guys.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I hope we did it some kind of justice.
It is one of those episodes where you could just go back and watch it over and over again.
There's so
and
many levels.
See new things. Yeah, have like a completely different interpretation.
Yeah. And it's just amazing that it's so good, and it's so hard to make just a regular episode of television in the amount of time that you make an episode of television. So the fact that they did this at all and wanted to do it at all was like props. The fact that it is as great and as classic as it is just extra and shows you how talented all these people are.
That's what I see when they're flopping in the waves at the end. It's just like
Phew,
relief.
we're
like,
done.
We lived through this crazy televisual experiment.
They could have filmed that first, though.
That's
you don't
true.
know.
But that's what I see there. It's like they've been doing this for months.
Okay.
Weren't they? They basically finished it like right before it was supposed to air. It's just, down to the wire kind of a business.
Yeah.
It's just so worth it. Like, all their hard work really paid off.
And thank you for opening the floodgates to some more musicals. And I still think there are only two really, really, really great ones, this one and Buffy. And the rest are just kind of doing their
But,
thing,
maybe
but not
one
in-
day somebody will look at the Xena musical and the Buffy musical and learn the right lessons from them and create another musical that really is about, getting in touch with the themes of your show and moving your plot forward
Of
and
course.
allowing your characters that moment.
It's not to say others don't do that specifically, but none to this level and with this level of dedication,
Because you really have to be a maniac.
You really do.
to do that.
You do.
Yeah.
So
Holy
I guess
crap.
this wraps it up for this
Did we
week.
do it? Yeah.
I think we did it. I think they want to turn us off now.
Oh, God.
You guys, the love of my love is you.
Follow us on those stuff,
Oh my
guys.
God.
Please.
Yeah.
Please do.
Please go to our website, XenaWarriorPodcast.com. You can find all sorts of things over there. Number one, check out our Patreon page if you are enjoying the podcast and maybe want more of it. We would love your support. The episodes, you can listen to them
That's good too.
the website as well as on Apple Podcasts, etc. Please subscribe, rate, leave reviews. All these things help us all the time. Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr. We're on those things. There are links. Go find them.
We're in your dreams. The power.
The passion.
The podcast!